when I was 18 and Skook State of Mind came out, I had no idea what I was doing marketing. So I was like, here's a good idea. Let's print a t-shirt and burn a CD. Because remember, this is Empire State of Mind. So it's not going, it's a remix. So it's not going on Spotify. I didn't want to go through like, I know you guys do like the cover song licenses, and I asked you about that before.
Yeah, mechanical licenses.
This isn't a cover song. I wasn't covering Empire State of Mind. So like, I had to keep it on Bandcamp where it was like, hey, donate to me or else you could have it for free.
Right.
Well, I'm like, all right, let's, it's local. Let's burn some CDs. Let's go around. Oh, you can meet Matty Fresh. That's the experience you're buying, right? So you're close enough to where I will drive to your house. I will meet you. You'll get your CD and a picture. It was like, do this, it's $20. I mean, I was young. So we did enough of these in one town that I tried to burn these, and I signed every CD. We must have did 500 of these. And of course, you're trying to burn 500 CDs on an old piece of shit HP laptop. You wouldn't believe the messages I got. And I felt so bad. People were like, hey, I popped this in. Nothing.
Right. And here, hey, you forgot to finalize your CD.
CDR.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
We're live.
We're live. Fuck it. We'll do it live.
First ever live collab or die.
I have the setup to be able to go out of house to do.
Do you trust yourself enough?
Not
production standpoint, yes, but your content.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like there's always somebody that you talk to and you're like,
right.
I can't have you on camera, man. I can't trust that you're not going to say something fucking ridiculous.
Dude, and some of these episodes have been long, and I'm sitting here like I've done probably a 45-minute interview at the longest. So you're going to have my longest interview. If this is going to go how I think it goes, this is going to be by far the longest interview I've ever done. So I came hopefully prepared enough.
You're good. Carlos has he's got to be a fucking 21-year-old college student and get to a party at some point this evening. So I'm not going to keep him too long.
I didn't realize it was Arts Fest till I got here.
Yeah, I was like, that's so funny. And
I had no idea when I asked.
I don't know if you met him. Do you remember when Happy Valley Song Lab did the artist meetup or whatever, and a bunch of artists went there?
Yeah.
One of the guys there, Tom Myruski, Nukage. I did an episode with him. If you've seen it or not,
I saw the face. I'm sure I remember.
But he said he hit me up earlier. He was like, is that going on downtown or something? Because he like just moved here during the pandemic when it wasn't going on. So really funny.
No, I came into town and I hadn't been here since March, and I was like, this is the weekend I picked, of course.
Right.
There's zero parking, and it's fun. I was listening to
right. And if you are parking, you're paying twice the fucking price for it. Yeah.
Kids across the street keeping me young with their party going on. So
right. You're just
makes me relive the old days.
Just looking longingly, just like can't turn back time. Stroking like, is that a gray hair in my beard?
You're getting washed for sure.
I thought for sure we would hear the music in the headphones. Just
it was
from
pretty loud.
It was pumping earlier.
A lot of young girls screaming Taylor Swift over there. So.
Oh, man. And they're about to do a Taylor Swift night at Stage West.
West, a venue I haven't been to yet.
Really?
But I did see that Hoodie came there.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
Was it last year? That's cool.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have been at that show. That probably, I don't think that venue has near the capability to hold the amount of people that would show up for one of his shows, would it? I've seen him at some pretty big venues.
Yeah. I mean, like at his peak, of whenever I first was introduced to him and met him, he was double back-to-back selling out the House of Blues in Boston, which is like a 2,000 cap venue.
Right.
And like, that's a pretty good.
Liacouras Center in Philly, so that's a huge one. That's an arena.
Where at?
Temple, Liacouras Center in Philly. That's where Temple plays basketball. It's an arena. So that was sold out.
Yes, but State College still exists as this fucking C-D market, depending on your genre. B, C, D is like where we get, at best, you've got some major pop star and everybody will show up because they've already got the exposure, they're going to be here, right? But the people are going to come out for it. But with Hoodie, I feel like he was just starting to drop new music with Connor Price.
Oh yeah,
and I would love to have Hoodie on. He's not too far. I should hit him up and see if he wants to come on. But man, he's an absolute character. But those kind of shows, obviously, when he comes out, he's basically got the slot booked, like he knows what he's doing.
Right.
But I really, really wish that most shows would just bake in the opportunity for one local for support.
Of course.
And like kick the doors back like an extra half an hour early and announce it as that. Like we played shows where they add us to the bill and then they want you to play 30 minutes before the doors. And
you guys
like,
open
absolutely
that,
not.
Relic Arts?
Yeah. So we basically become like the de facto rock
That's
opener
awesome.
for the area,
I
which is
can't believe
pretty
I
tight.
haven't been
Yeah.
there yet. I have not made my way to Stage West for a show. It's definitely bucket list.
Did you ever go to the Crowbar? Were you old enough to go to the Crowbar whenever
I
that
graduated
was
here 2019, so it was like right.
Oh, they were
before
down then.
Stage
Yeah.
West opened, I guess. Like Stage West was like 21. It opened.
Yeah, and it was a couple venues. So it was mezzanine and the
Right.
levels before that, or switch those. And that was like a legacy bar. Like there were people. I remember seeing Less Than Jake at Moving On, and like this is forever ago, 2,000 years ago, for all we care. And they were saying like, hey, there's a venue that used to be here. Like, what happened to it? Like, you guys need to keep supporting the arts because like we remembered the Crowbar down the street.
Yeah.
Like, where did it go? Like, we loved playing there.
You don't forget a place like State College. You really don't. It's got its own unique vibe, and I think other artists that come through here probably realize that. I mean, obviously, the whole Jonas Brothers thing was who knows how genuine that was, but I still do think that even they had a special place in their heart.
Yeah,
for being here at one point.
And I still don't think I fully understand why. Like, I don't get it.
They said it was his 21st birthday, Joe's, but I think that was actually in Altoona. So,
but also I think I heard that he wanted to come here, but then music. So
or
like,
maybe it was Champs North Atherton. It was one of the Champs that wasn't downtown because it was a Chili's when Joe Jonas was 21. So
oh yeah, for sure, it was a Chili's.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They were like, yeah, he had his 21st birthday here, and that's. But yeah, they were talking about how that's when I was.
He probably did Champs North, and so they just claim it because it's all under the umbrella, and for all intents and purposes, fine, fuck it.
Right.
But Matty Fresh, dude, holy fuck, finally got you on the podcast, dude. I'm really glad.
It's been a while in the making. I've been watching closely on this. I think it's one of the cooler projects I've seen come out lately. So
especially for me, which is like, I appreciate that, man. Like it's still kind of a little baffling when people were like, yo, love the podcast. I had a buddy of mine who sent me a picture of me on his TV, and he was like, what the fuck is my girlfriend doing watching you on television right now? And I was like, who? I didn't even know who was I didn't have his number in my phone at the time. So I was like, who were you? Who's your girlfriend? What?
Yeah.
And he told me, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. But yeah, the support's been pretty good. And it's, I feel like part of me wants it to grow to be obviously as big as it can be, but I'm just so busy with so much shit that I have a hard time focusing on like growing it. So the only thing I'm really focused on doing is just kind of just showing up, being authentic, having these conversations and enjoying them. Today I am like exceptionally burnt the fuck out. I had My Hero Zero was playing the Old Main Lawn.
Oh wow!
At this shell stage, this big stage, basically like a main stage Warped Tour style stage, and I was doing video because I'm going to do a highlight reel for them for the show, and then I turn it over and they post it on socials and stuff, and then I was able to get Carlos, my intern, hired to do photos. And so it was like an all in-house thing. He ran around, snagged photos the whole time. And, but the heat.
Well, they're not doing you any favors.
Immediately made me not miss Warped Tour. I was like, oh yeah, I remember stepping on stage when the fucking sun was on everything. And it's all black. Everything on the stage is black because they wanted to be able to look clean later at some point. And it's just fucking abysmal. You're just out there like, oh, and they had to play an hour and a half set. That's the roughest. I sweat through my shirt.
I spent a lot of time in State College in the summers. And that's why when football season rolls around and it's, I don't know, maybe the first or second week of September and you get that first day where there's a fall chill in the air, you're downtown, it's buzzing, maybe it's a Wednesday or Thursday before a home football weekend. That is my heaven.
Yeah, that might.
Because you come out of that heat, and that's what I love about the seasons, because I've lived in the South and I've lived in different climates, and nothing beats a State College fall. But we gruel through the summer. It is literally like
the best weather of all time. Like if you're lucky to experience it,
beautiful. Right?
Yeah, we are ignorantly blessed. Yeah,
but I can't imagine doing what My Hero Zero did today. I mean, it's 95 degrees out.
It's fun, but you have to prep. Like I got to the point. My first year on Warped Tour was like we weren't officially on. We won a Battle of the Bands for Ernie Ball, and then we got to play our local date, and it was which wasn't local. It was in Scranton, so it's like a cool, casual 2 hours away, and I remember playing our set and being like, oh, this is awesome. And I had like a shirt on and like an overshirt. I was like, you have this apparel, you have to look. Yeah. And man, we followed the tour for 2 weeks in a van that had very terrible AC. I think we actually knocked out a window and put it like a panel in that would fit an AC. It would like, so we could plug it into our generator while we went to bed because it was abysmal during the summer. Right. And by the time we were off of that, I was like, all right. But I'm excited for next year. Hopefully we get to be on next year. And then the next 2 years we were on it. And by year 3, I knew to like get up in the morning, no hesitation, like crack one of the Monster Tour waters open, slam that. It's like 16 ounces or whatever. That's got to be gone immediately, 20 ounce. And then I would just be like, I have to have 3 of these in me before I get to stage. One when I get to stage while we're setting up, and I have to have it gone by the time we're done setting up, which is like a 15-minute set changeover usually. And then immediately I'd have 1 or 2 on stage because sometimes you fucking kick one over and they're cans. So like there's not like a bottle you can fucking put a lid on.
Right.
But yeah,
I think it's half the reason I haven't really committed fully to my music side of things is because I'm scared to tour. I don't think I have the endurance. If I would ever get big enough to one day tour, I would be afraid of what would happen to me because I physically don't think I would be able to get in shape to do what some of these people do. It's insane in the heat and the conditions that you have to perform in and always be up there with a presence and seeming interesting too.
Yeah, well, listen,
getting a break.
Let me tell you right now, I will not accept this when I get big enough to tour bullshit from you because you can tour at any size. And you, I believe, were just celebrating 5 million streams on Trace McSorley.
Maybe the State College tour, we go from cafe, we'll hit up doggies, but I don't know about national, but I appreciate that. Yeah, we did hit 5 million streams on the Trace McSorley song. And the most important part of that for me is it's organically.
Yeah.
That song was recorded in a dorm room closet and we had zero idea what we were doing. And I hate to admit that because, it's my biggest song, but, sometimes
what year
you can stumble upon
was that you released that? Is that
2018?
2018, yeah.
2018 was going into my senior year here at Penn State.
Okay, so you were a junior at the time of writing it, though, and recording it?
Yeah, junior at the time of writing it, and then it was the summer going into my senior year that I recorded it.
That's a fucking undergrad American dream right there. It's just to be in a shitty dorm.
We were just talking about the Hoodie Allen, right? It's the Hoodie Allen. That's the kind of and a lot of my music came up. I always say like if you were an artist, maybe 08, 09, doing the kind of music that if you've ever heard my music, my kind of vibe. I wouldn't say it's frat rap, but just more like a feel good rap and stuff like that.
Oh, look at you not wanting to be put into boxes already.
Yeah, I can't call myself frat rap because all my songs are about football players, and the football players don't necessarily get along with the frats. So
right.
I would say if you were an artist, maybe like a Sammy Adams in like 2008, 2009, coming up on MySpace, if I could trade anything for my early artistry, I would go straight to that era. It seemed like it was so much fun. That's how you're going to release music, through MySpace.
Right.
And
it was the Wild West.
It was easy to get in there,
Yeah, if you were smart and you had the ability to everybody had a homie who did HTML. So if you could do a custom website, which you were basically able to do with the MySpace layout, which is absurd to think about now. Can you imagine Facebook being like, yeah, here's the source code to our website. Go ahead and do whatever you want to make it look as cool as you want to.
Yeah.
And then, I think that's the early dawn of social media when it comes to that, that aspect of being more social about things.
So much fun, yeah.
And being able to have it on your phone.
Yeah.
It's like pre-iPhone.
Everybody had a profile song.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing ever. Why don't we bring that back? I guess we can't, but I think with MySpace, seeing some of the artists who, Soulja Boy basically reinvented it, but with MySpace and how some of the artists that I was inspired by, how they came up on there, I was just like, that would have been cool, because by the time I got around to it, it was 2014. It was YouTube, and I think Bandcamp was actually pretty big. SoundCloud, obviously, but no TikTok. Spotify wasn't around in 2014. So
yeah, I don't think so.
Maybe it wasn't the early stages.
No, they were definitely around. We released our first track in 2014. I remember we're on there. Actually, I just went through and realized we didn't have. Do you have canvases for a lot of your songs?
I do for one or two. The ones that have music videos, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I realized that we had a few of our original tracks pre-canvas being a thing.
Yeah.
I totally spaced. I was like, oh shit, we don't have any canvases for any of these songs, and some of them are and they're in our top 10.
Right.
So I'm like, I need to go back and fix this because
yeah.
The statistics are clear.
I always appreciate that when I click an old song from maybe early 2000s or before, and there's a canvas.
Yeah, that's somebody's job at the label,
exactly.
Right?
Go through just archive.
Yeah.
When it's an old music video, it's cool too. I know sometimes they do the remakes, but yeah, like Bandcamp, you probably are familiar with that. That was a big thing for independent artists. You could kind of make it so that somebody could donate to you, but they could also buy the song if they wanted. It was customizable.
So speaking of Bandcamp, I just walked around Arts Fest earlier for the first. I did my first loop through. I'm looking for a new ring. I'd like to get another ring.
Yeah.
And met this guy, and I was like, where do you listen to music to? I was like, Spotify, Apple Music. Like, what's your? And he's like, Bandcamp mostly. I was like,
I would love to meet that.
well, right. That's in my eyes. I'm like, who the fuck is Bandcamp's
That's
audience?
awesome,
Like, it's like Bandcamp is for people who perpetually want to support their friends that want to be musicians, and I feel like there's this like, poverty sense of like, please listen to my song.
I still got music on there, and I'll get an email every now, maybe, I don't know, twice a year, and it'll say, cha-ching, so-and-so paid 5 cents for this on Bandcamp. I'm like, let's go. That 5 cents is becoming 2.5 cents and going to get sent to me on PayPal.
Add it to my racks.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, no, I feel like, I mean, really, I'm being an idiot here saying this. Like, the reality is you should be everywhere. You have to be, because like, you never know. Like, if we have, I think one of the habits that we picked up early is we always had a free download link for any song we release, so you could do it. Jeez. And then later Patreon came around, and it was like a thing you could do in that way. And so I had never really, I just thought Patreon was a way for people to like basically suck money out of their fans. That was the vibe I got from it. But I've seen people,
like a Kickstarter sort of thing, but that was a little different.
Yeah. Kickstarter was like for the EP or the project, and how many people went through and tried to do, free, open sourcing their income to be able to pay for doing things like that. But what I noticed was we did a cover with First to 11, this Post Malone cover, who's got a new record coming out at the end of this month, by the way. I went to Raising Cane's yesterday. They got these limited edition cups. My mouth
is going to be watering. We don't have Raising Cane's in Pottsville, where I'm from, and man, the one in state I miss dearly. It just opened at the
right when you were getting
end
ready
of 22, or was it last year at some point? But best chicken, better than Chick-fil-A.
It's really, really good.
And so open Sunday.
Well, I went last night because I was like, oh, he's got these Post Malone has these like 4 collector cups that are coming out every 2 weeks.
Way, for Raising Cane's?
Yeah. Wow. And they did, and which I fucking love. And it's only
crazy,
it's like $1.39 to add it to whatever your meal is to be able to get the cup. And I was like, I'm gonna have all of them. Exactly. And so I missed the first week because I didn't even hear about this until I saw it like randomly on some ad on Facebook that was or an article that was posted. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna get them now. Yeah, right.
That's way cooler than the Travis Scott meal, I'm telling you right now. It's better food too.
Oh yeah.
Whatever liquid you get in that cup, better than the Travis Scott meal at McDonald's.
Oh, I didn't even know there was one.
They had all kind of artists doing like collabs with McDonald's. I think I don't know who's some of the
artists. They had Saweetie last year. Yeah. Last summer was like the last summer meal or whatever that went through there.
Can you imagine a Chick-fil-A Taylor Swift partnership? I think the internet would break.
The line would get longer. It'd be more obnoxious. You couldn't go to the one in State College. The line would be around. It's already around. They had to literally reconstruct the parking lot.
The drive-through, huh?
And they have like a team. They have like a tag team of like 6 people in the drive-through. Whenever you pull up, it's like one person takes your order, the other person's just like flagging you through, and then the other person's like, "Okay, park here, sir." It's like an airport. They got like the traffic cones.
You got
it's
your
like
my pleasure like 6 times now.
My pleasure. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to make that blitzkrieg. You got to be everywhere. Right. And truthfully, like, I think there's something to, I saw Patreon executed when we did our Post Malone cover with First to 11 really well, because they actually have some more of a team structure built in. Right. So whenever they do things, there is some behind the scenes footage and they can just post whatever. It can be a little less perfect. It can be kind of like a ridiculous moment or something that happened. And if you're a fan and you want to see that, it is kind of a cool way to be able to be like, hey, you could be putting this out there for free. You're not, or you're only sharing it with the Patreon members or whatever. But there's something to that, right? Like there's actually an exchange of like the understanding of the artist's goods and services.
Intimate,
and I like that. And I saw it done right in their instance, and I was like, I would love to start one and maybe get into that, but I'm already just trying to push the bar on like all this stuff we're doing otherwise. So it's like now, and that's a whole other avenue.
Right.
And so it's difficult when you don't have somebody who's kind of around and filming you all the time.
That's true. Yeah. I would like if you did that for me. That would be my ideal situation. I think you can capture the moment pretty well.
Fuck you. I don't want to do it at all. I only got into video because of, I've just, because I had to create a canvas for our first cover that we released, Royals. Yeah. I had to look at like the first music video I'd done for us. Jeez. Yeah. And so watching it for the first time, and I can't even tell you how long.
Still in the popular section though, up top.
Of course it is. Actually, I think we just hit 1.5 million streams. And so I just feel like I feel like seeing it done well is good. I want to be able to transfer that over to like being able to do that for us. But yeah, you need this person that kind of you need the content creator. And you like Gary Vee at all? You fuck with him?
I've heard some of his podcasts. Yeah.
Right. So the podcasts are not. I remember he started popping up on socials on Instagram, and I was like addicted because it was this guy that was at least speaking to how I felt about things, regardless of how things were implementing in my life. And then there's this kind of like toxic positivity movement that's going on where everybody's like, you just got to believe, and then your dreams can happen. It's like, that is actually not true. No. There is like this barrier to entry for everything. Thanks. And with recording getting easier, opportunities have opened up for artists. You've got more bedroom recording artists coming out. I mean, ultimately, if you have a really good mixer and master and you do record in your closet or your dorm or whatever, if you're smart and you realize, okay, I need all the numbers of tracks that I need to have or whatever it is that I need to have in line, I need to do this right. But if I send these tracks out to somebody else who knows how to handle this, I'm going to get something good back. And for the longest time, I didn't understand that aspect. I went through, I'm easily like 5-6 years of writing records and getting the mixes back and being like, I mean, yeah, I'm pumped about it because it's new and it's fun to play live. Obviously, I'm enjoying it more live, but it doesn't really, I can't A and B this with my favorite records and say that ours sounds just as good. And then I was like, well, it must be because I don't have 40,000 to dump into a record, but that's not true anymore. Like mixing and software plugins have evolved a lot over the last, since I jumped into music for sure. And so just seeing how things have evolved and been able to be put into a position where more people have access to it, that barrier to entry is removed. But then you're like, okay, I want to get into touring. How do I tour? It's like, well, if you DIY tour, good luck. You're gonna enjoy it for the experience of like, there's just something about sleeping on the floor of a van with a couple of your friends that you like, or just going after this with. And when you're early enough, the dream is like, you have the dream of being big and you've got no steps of how you're going to get there to do it. Right. Yeah. And then you eventually over time, hopefully develop, barricades around things. You're like, all right, that's a pothole. Let's avoid that. Like, but that there's just something about like, those nights in a van where you're like, it's like you could have nothing, but if you're at peace with the fact that you're doing what you want in life and you're enjoying that experience, it's like irreplaceable. There's no other way to describe that feeling. Yeah.
And I've done a few like pay to play shows. I've kind of navigated the whole, like, oh, you want to open for this artist, sell this amount of tickets when I was younger. And, a lot of my songs just kind of resonate with like a very like local audience and like a cult following. So I end up doing a lot of backyard barbecues, a lot of weddings, a lot of graduation parties, and just stuff like that. Cause I'm from a small town, man. And that's what they have. And I love those. They're so much fun to do, to just hang out in someone's backyard for a July 4th. I just got done doing one this year.
It's better than a wedding, dude. You're like, yeah, give me a plate here. Give me a plate at this place.
Sure, it's just a PA system. The sound setup isn't great. And, you could try to bring all your gear, but you can't use it because they don't have the hookup for it in the backyard. But it's like, some of those intimate shows are fun. And, I don't know.
What was the thing that we filmed like 6 or 7 or 8 months ago, maybe a year ago now, I feel like? It was for somebody's birthday?
Yeah, see that kind of stuff. So we did that's right. In the Song Lab, we did a tribute video for somebody's 8th birthday. And his mom hired me and said, yeah, we're going to play this on a big projector screen. So I didn't actually have to go there because they weren't local.
Right.
And it was
the tail end of the pandemic, I feel like, too?
I think it was a little after that. I feel like it was it was during the football season at some point because I was here and I went.
So then it had to have just been
I think we did it on a Saturday morning of a home game. Now that I can remember it.
We totally did because I think we were trying to pull off a music video shoot at the same time.
Yeah, we got rained out. Oh, they're bringing that back. Yeah, man, like stuff like that I'll get. Like I just got done doing. It'll be they'll have it by the time this is out, but I ended up doing like a custom song for like a high school football player, like stuff like that.
That's cool.
Like small town has always kind of been part of my identity. And I know that there are kids in small towns out there who like listen to my music a lot and you know, they play sports and that's what it's all about.
I want to be very clear. Like that small town mentality, you're right. That does exist. And that's a very real thing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because everybody needs to feel like they're being not catered to, but they got to be, they have to feel like they're being seen or that they're at least understood. Everybody does. Mm-hmm. And if I could go and if I could rebrand us right now, it wouldn't be as some like mysterious, moody rock band. I would never want to be perceived like that. Mm-hmm. And that's another reason I jumped into the podcast is like, I want people to
really hear what you're about.
You just get to know me, and then if you fuck with me and you want to come to the show, we're gonna have a better time, and you're gonna remember more of the conversations than I do. But the conversations I'm having are just shit that I feel.
Right.
They're just things that I think already. And so if I could brand us as anything like right now, we're a working class band. Like we all have jobs.
Exactly.
I love that my job is in the creative space. All of my band members do wildly different things, and it's awesome because they have the appreciation for coming back to the art and creating, and that can keep you hungry, right? Like it's like a perspective thing because you're still working to put food on the table, but then you're trying to do this thing on the side, and like we don't take any money from the project. Like everything we make, we just reinvest.
Exactly.
You always got shit you want to buy. Like we switched to an in-ear system last year, and like we financed that because I was like, oh, our royalties are enough to cover all of our band expenses plus pay down this, small monthly payment over the course of like 2 or 3 years.
It's about breaking even. That's what you got to do in this kind of space, and then hope for your break one day. Yeah,
I'm not in the mood of like wanting to try to make money in bank, and like it would be great. I want the bag, right? But the bag is not. It can't be the focus, certainly, because you're going to lose sight of why you're doing it in the first place. Yep. And there was a period of time where I definitely did, because you start having to deal with the finances as a part of your artistry, and that's a really hard thing to juggle if you're a creative, because you're like, oh yeah, I got to be a business now. And then until you understand that like there's a bedside manner to that, you can be business and the artist at the same time. You just have to find a way to compartmentalize those things and keep them separate.
It's crazy to think that at one point everybody had such a large team around them that would take care of so many things. And now no matter what you do, whether it's a podcast or music, you're pretty much on your own. I mean, you can have good people around you. Like you've been instrumental with my stuff, whether it was at first giving me advice on, some things, what to do, shooting the Comeback Aaron video, obviously some other random gigs. You've done photo shoots for me.
I forget tribute videos, that was like the Comeback Aaron video was on ESPN. Like I forgot that you like got it. Yeah. That's awesome. Like you came to me with an idea, super minimal budget. We were just like, hey, this is the idea. What can we do? And I was like, okay, I got to think. We want to make this video. It's like you want to empathize with the message, but also you want it to be kind of like, you want to keep people laughing and enjoying.
I might need
the
a tissue
experience.
or two if we're going to talk about this, by the way, because dude, I'm sour subject right now. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers now a New York Jet, and this song will forever be the most ironic tribute I've ever made. Begging this guy. I call him now. What have I done? Like I call him this guy. This was my hero growing up. Like this was the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, my favorite team since I was 12. And obviously, go listen to.
Have you ever met him or like?
I've never met Aaron Rodgers, and he's kind of the white whale. I don't think I ever will.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, who knows?
He seems really cool.
Yeah, it's always one of those things with me where I'm like, I truly. People will say I'm a freak for this. I truly care about sports. Like, I know that's like, oh, there's other things going on in the world. Like, I deeply care about my sports teams. And when my quarterback of 17 years leaves and goes to the New York Jets, after I made a song about him, to which, we talk about Comeback Aaron, think about Devontae Adams now with the Las Vegas Raiders. Aaron not coming back to Green Bay. You could win a Super Bowl in front of your fiance was the next lyric. Didn't win a Super Bowl. Actually watched them lose to the 49ers in the playoffs in his last playoff game in Lambeau Field. And also, I said, win a Super Bowl in front of your fiance. Him and Shailene Woodley broke it off. There's literally nothing accurate about that song anymore, and it's just now a piece of history that doesn't make sense if you listen to it today. So
it's context based. I watched
context based.
I watched this movie that I used to watch all the time as a kid. My dad used to always put it on. It was Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Yeah. And it is, if you haven't watched it ever or watched it in a while, it has all this like nostalgic, like late 80s, early 90s callback. The way the phones, like having a crystal clear plastic phone was, I don't know why that was all the rage in the early 90s, but it was like we could see the electronics and we were like, guys, this is society.
Now. Yeah.
We're advancing.
Phone. Yeah.
And so I feel like it's good to create. That's why you can't care about it after it's out. You have to release it and put it out. You just got to get the thing out and move on to the next thing.
I'm a walking example of it with the Trace McSorley song. We put that out in 2018, like I said, recorded, mixed, and mastered in a dorm room. Put it out with no marketing budget. Just figure it out. I had a song before that about Saquon Barkley. I was like, all right, Trace has been at Saquon's side. Saquon moved on to the NFL. I was like, it's time for Trace to get his. And when we put the song out, it, you know, did all right around here. People in State College.
Right. It's fun.
You know, and at that point I was like, you know what, if you make music for you, your friends, your family, you know, that's all you need. But then I was like a little upset that it didn't get to the next level. And it took 2 years for that song to blow
he wasn't
up.
even here anymore.
It took 2 years and TikTok for that song to blow up. And there's nothing that I could have done to control that.
Yeah.
I didn't even have the app at that point. So
You're
it's
like,
insane.
I'm blowing up on the TikTok. What?
To have a community that will go out and find your song from 2 years ago and do something as simple as play Madden with it in the background.
Yeah.
And play with Trace on Madden and just go completely Tom Brady and just have Trace throwing dimes all over the field. That's what caused this thing to blow up on TikTok. And I think about that and I'm like, the amount of money that a record label might invest into marketing and trying to push a song.
Yeah.
And I got it from an 11-year-old kid fucking around on Madden.
Yeah.
I'm like, and a video that I didn't even originally see, it had to be sent to me because I didn't even have the platform it was on.
That's the best way to receive that news.
And I'm like, that taught me so much about music and about your, you know, the come up as an artist. You could try to dump gas in the fire, and we all do. But
Right.
it's like,
you have to.
Do you ever really know when your break is coming? I mean, that was a windfall I could have never pictured. I mean, things weren't going my way. I mean, it was obviously the pandemic. It's like October of 2020. And everybody's on this app, and I'm like, I don't want it. I'm stubborn. Like, actually, when I had a lyric in one of my other songs after Trace that I said, you know, they want me to go to the app store. I don't need no TikTok, you fucking asshole, or something like that. It was one of my lyrics in my follow-up song. And I just think about that, and I'm like, how could I have been more stubborn about something that directly led to my own success?
Yeah. That's the thing.
Just get off my lawn type of energy, you know?
By nature, artists are already pretty stubborn, right? So like, you don't want to, I mean, the last thing I want to deal with, like this Threads thing that just dropped for Facebook, I'm like, no, I won't, I'm not doing it. And of course it's going to be the fastest engagement reach growing platform, but I'm like, that's just because people are going to be active on it that are new on it.
Yeah, I was just starting to make Twitter work for me too. Like we took the last 6 months and we did an XFL podcast, and we were getting great engagement on Twitter because there's very niche, not a lot of people in that space. And XFL being a brand new league, you know, The Rock brings it back. And we end up with a lot of engagement on Twitter because we found all the people who, you know, want to come along for the startup of the XFL.
Right.
Just when I start doing good, analytics are good, getting good engagement, possibility of now being able to advertise on Twitter, whatever. And now this. And it's just like, oh man, why couldn't we just have Twitter?
Yeah. And I think it's a mixed bag, right? Because like, you know, you need to some degree, if you want to advertise, you should. Yeah. And if you're going to, it's going to cost money. So now that requires a budget to do. And then it requires a different budget to do it well. So you have to kind of be mindful of like this evolving marketplace and not get locked into the idea that, okay, well, I'm going to market and I'm going to spend a ridiculous amount of money, because if you don't know what you're doing and not paying attention, you need an ability to look at the analytics, like the back end of it, to say what is and what isn't working. I've got a bunch of, I think, funny ideas I'd love to put on a billboard, but only one out of about 100 of them is going to be one that's moderately good. I wanted to, you said something a second ago. Man, my ADD is terrible. So fucking bad. I wish I could just that's the thing I'd like to change.
Hey, it's Arts Fest, man.
Mm-hmm.
a lot going on that normally doesn't in state.
Well, so let me jump back to when you were talking about the Aaron Rodgers music video. Like when you came to me about that, I obviously the part of my brain that is perfectionist and wants to fix and like can perpetually keep things in the, you know, oh, I could do a little bit better. I could do a little bit more to this and will prevent me from releasing something. You and a handful of other people that came to me with projects like that have really helped me be like, no, you just got to slap a deadline on this and rush to get it done. And sometimes you don't have the infrastructure in place to do something really well. I looked at certain shots and I'm like, oh, I would have switched lenses and gone further away. I would have had like a couple different things I would have done differently. But we came up with all the ideas. And what was fun about that video was that we were like just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck. If it was a funny idea, we're like, can we knock that out? We added things that we hadn't originally talked about. Right. And we got together and talked on a Friday, and then it was like Saturday we were filming.
I was going to say, secret's out. We filmed it in one day. So if anybody has seen it, I'm guessing you didn't think it was filmed in one day, because it was a lot of different scenes, a lot going on.
I think we started
can you imagine
like
the behind the scenes of that video? Because we had Jason, with us from My Hero Zero. He was helping out. I remember him kind of guiding the cardboard cutout around because we had that Aaron. By the way, I will not. It's in my basement, man. I don't know. I can't even look at him. I come down the stairs. He'll be staring at me. I had to turn his face around. Just haunts me to this day.
It's hard because, like you said, like in the hook are all specifically lyrics of things that are completely
I had to
different.
Perform it last week.
Oh no!
You know, there's some kids in the crowd and stuff, and they're like looking at me like he looks sad. I was genuinely sad.
Well, listen, you do care about sports, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like you deeply care about it, and what I think is great about it is I don't know how you feel about whether or not you're going to get pigeonholed into this niche of being like, oh, I can only do songs about sports, but you truly love sports. So if you did, who gives a shit if you're niched into that? Because you're like, this is what I love, and P.S. I'm kind of fucking good at it.
Yeah.
Check the record. Like the numbers are there. People like this stuff because
it's what works. And as you get older and as you get farther in your journey, I feel like you kind of stick to what works, and trying new things is great. And I'll always try new things. I still have some music out that has nothing to do with sports at all. Dropped a song last year called Tsunami. You did the photo shoot for it.
Yeah.
Where we were out.
That was so much fun too. That was another couple hour ripper where we just walked around and got some good shots. And I see I think this is your Instagram picture, right?
Yeah.
So when you post something on stories,
absolutely,
I always see like that little circle.
It's a great shot.
Dude, it actually is because I like not to toot my own fucking horn, but like when I see that little circle in your Instagram on your Instagram like stories, I'm like, I know that's you.
Yeah. You were able to authentically capture me. And that was perfect.
It's a pretty iconic image of you. Like I was like pretty thrilled with how it turned out.
I'll be my Threads profile picture as well as Instagram. But yeah, like I have some songs that have. I mean, most of them are about sports in some capacity, but I have some songs that aren't about sports. And I think I just had to grow up and tell myself, like, listen, this is what you love. You grew up watching sports. I'm a very passionate sports fan. I love football, I love basketball.
But listen, it's an easy way for you to stay current.
Yeah,
like you can literally drop something and be
right. All my songs are kind of time sensitive. Like Saquon Barkley, if you listen to that was kind of my first debut into like making music about sports.
Yeah. And
it's all about him in college. If you listen to Trace, which blew up 2 years after the fact, had nothing to do with his NFL career. All about when he was here. Comeback Aaron, obviously, in its own sense. And then Jahan Dotson, like all these songs, I've had to kind of figure out the difference between how you should do it, which is have, 30 to 40 songs stored on your hard drive and then come up with some kind of content schedule where you can promote those and then release those. And I've been so opposite of that. Like I've sat on the Jahan Dotson song for months because Penn State was losing football games in 2021.
Right.
They lost to Illinois in 9 overtimes. The song was supposed to come out the day after that. There is no chance. I went right in there and canceled everything. I sent all the emails to the distributor. Cancel it. It can't come out. It can't come out after Penn State took a brutal loss. So I think about that, and I've probably
not that it was Dotson's fault or anything.
Not at all. Obviously. But it's like I would have got.
You're trying to highlight him when he's getting
out, man. Like, and that's the thing. Like when you do music about sports, you can get clowned because Trace McSorley can throw an interception. These guys might not have their best game, and you can get clowned about that kind of stuff because then people will use the song against them.
Right.
So if Trace comes out and has a bad game one day, there's going to be a million videos on TikTok, because people are toxic with my song in the background. But, I've learned to not really care as much about
listen, man, there's no such thing as bad publicity in that regard. Like if you're in this position where you're lucky enough that they're putting the streams still count, motherfucker, keep using it.
Yeah.
And when you build out your discography and you've got like decades worth, they're kind of like callback things. There'll be things that people will enjoy listening to whenever they can be like, hey, remember when, you kind of time encapsulate every moment of a person's life if they're listening to you while you're releasing things.
Actually, a good story about that. So you had Tyler Elsdon on the Blue White Player Show. We grew up in the same area.
I'm trying to get him on the podcast before the season starts. I want to catch him. I want to catch him before the season goes in. I should reach out to him. It's whether or not he's in town. He's been home traveling and doing stuff. And that mustache is fucking legendary.
It's awesome. And you'd be able to have a great conversation with him about small town and stuff that we
We had a great conversation just behind the scenes getting ready for the set. Like he actually stayed and we hung out. We had dinner at Champs afterward. We would they get their check obviously from the NIL and then for the NIL, and then we we also offer them to provide them dinner. But sometimes, you know, they come down and do the show and then they got to get back because they're like, I got to get some sleep because I'm going to be beat. I feel so bad that we were doing it so late because they are fried, man. Those guys bust their asses.
Yeah, and there's guys like Tyler who will just do anything like that. And like, cool story about him. We grew up in the same area, Schuylkill County.
Oh yeah,
and
out in Shenandoah.
He's from Frackville, and I'm from Deer Lake, about 20 minutes apart. Went to different schools, and I was doing radio coming up in high school and my first couple of years of college for the local radio station in Pottsville, and he was out there playing, so I was literally covering his sport that he was playing. So I knew about him forever. And then he commits to Penn State, and
you're like, let's go.
And it's awesome because he started at middle linebacker last year. I go out to LA, they win the Rose Bowl. I'm in the team hotel afterwards, and I got to talk to Tyler for a while, and he's just like, dude, anytime somebody asks me where I'm from, that is an outsider and isn't from Schuylkill County, I always pull up your music video, Skook State of Mind, to show them like what it's really about. And like Aeneas Hawkins has seen this, and I just talked to him about it. And I'm like,
I love Aeneas, dude.
Like when you make a song, obviously back then, Empire State of Mind, huge song.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were making parodies
about
their own hometowns on YouTube. So I jumped in on the trend, and I made one called Skook State of Mind. And that was it'll be 10 years ago next year. And I have never gotten more than like this single sentiment more than any other sentiment in my career, which is people from my area telling me whenever they meet somebody else from around the area,
they show them that video.
That is what they show them to describe where we live and what we came from. And Tyler does this, and it goes back to exactly what you were saying. Like, just the fact that it's a moment in time. And yeah, I made that as an 18-year-old kid.
Right.
And I dreamed of it to get to 1 million views.
Wasn't that your first song?
First song. Well, I mean, other than like a couple.
With a video. I think it was your first one that had a video.
It was the first time I was ever in a studio. And the other songs that I had put out had not been anything I would really call a song. More just messing around. But I did some some videos on Facebook before that. But yeah, that was the first real true track I did. And like, I always wanted it to get to 1 million. It's sitting at, I think, about like 425,000 right now. And it's really cool because
that's one that's going to build over time.
I want to do something for the 10th anniversary next year. And like a lot of
it up
places we went. I mean, obviously, you know the state of Pennsylvania really well. I'm not sure if you've ever seen the video, but I think you would just appreciate it.
Yeah. You showed it to me when we were talking about doing the video that we did for Come Back Aaron.
Yeah. Some of the videos, some of the scenes in there, like we wouldn't even be able to go back and shoot there. Like
just things.
Centralia, which is one of our main shooting locations, they dumped all this like piles of dirt on the graffiti highway to keep people off.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be cool to do like a 10th anniversary. But yeah, back to your overall point.
I mean, that adds fodder to the actual track lyrics, right? You're like, you could literally create a
do a whole
beat
remix.
At the very, like in the middle of a verse where you just kind of leave a pause and you're like, you're yelling at the director. You're like, how the hell am I supposed to show them? You know, like
people would love that.
What do you mean they buried it?
Yeah, but just, I don't know. It's crazy because I was in the mentality when I made that song that one day I'd outgrow Schuylkill County and I'd go and, off on my big journey and go move to LA and do everything that, all my favorite artists did. And I think about it and I'm like, wait a second, like I've never wanted that. I'm a small town kid at heart. And that's why I made that, right? I thought I was making that as a joke. But the real reason I made that is because I loved where I grew up. And I was always thinking like, is it a true love for where I grew up and my small town and the people and just the things? And
do you feel pretty supported by your hometown?
More than ever. Yeah, I feel like that is.
What's that like? I can't get this fucking town to acknowledge me if I could do anything. Yeah. It doesn't matter what I do in good charity for this area. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. It is a special feeling, right? Yeah. Like I feel like if you're lucky enough to be in an area where people aren't so competitive that they can't, accept that we're not against each other. We're in a race together.
Right. Like
this is actually a relay and we all got to get through this. You want everybody to be pushing in the same direction. And if people were more supportive, like you should be gassing up the artists in your area if they're good enough and what they do is nice. There's something to be said for somebody who's like, hey, come see my band play. And you go and you're like, how the fuck do I tell you never to invite me to a show again?
Right.
But there's something totally different when you've got somebody who's like, they've got the underpinnings of what could be a successful career and all they need is like this hometown support, but you don't want to be begging for it. You want to have like genuine support for it. Yeah. So it takes finding, you did something that tapped into this thing that probably regardless of whether or not they were very into rap or not, they enjoyed that. And you may have bridged the gap for some people to be like, hey, you know what? Like okay, maybe I get it now that like some rap can be funny and I enjoy this because it hits close to home. I think it's cool that you're like in touch with that part of being from a small community and wanting to basically, I mean, that's a macro micro scenario, right? Like that town is all over this country, all over the place.
Oh yeah.
And so that one obviously applies to a very specific one. But what's cool about that is that the other songs that do you have, let me ask, I guess, do you feel like you're going to continue to focus on sports only, or do you have any like tracks that are not going to be sports oriented coming up?
I don't have an answer. I really don't have an answer for that because I guess my creative process is so different because I've never really made music about myself that anyone else has heard, if that makes sense. Like even the songs that I did put out that have nothing to do with sports are more themed otherwise. I've never made like a song about how I feel or a song about what I'm thinking or a song about my journey or anything, which is weird.
Which is the reason why you got to make the song about how you've never made a song about your feelings and who you are.
Yeah, I've always, like you said, kind of pigeonholed into that whole thing. And, you do what works. And I think Skook State of Mind set a high enough bar for me as an 18-year-old
to continue
locally,
following,
right? Where like you're 18, and let's be honest, if you're 18 years old and everywhere you go within your area, people know who you are, your head is going to blow up beyond belief. And that to be my first one is just like it has set this unrealistic standard that now if I make a song, it's got to relate because it related so heavily to the people that heard it. That now when I make something, I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. I make local anthems. I relate to people, whether it's sports, local, whatever. And yeah, like it shocks me to this day. Like we were just talking about, having some hometown support. Like even with the XFL stuff I've been doing where I've been covering it and doing a podcast with it, something that has nothing to do with music at all. Like we broke some news about the XFL. It got shared on like a main sports page and I'm reading the comments and they're like, yeah, like source is Matty Fresh, whatever. And people are in the comments like, so you're telling me like Skook State of Mind guy is like a sports journalist now. And I'm like, how cool is that? They've never heard Saquon, Trace, Jahan, Comeback Aaron, anything. This is the first thing they've seen of me since Skook State of Mind. So that means that there are people who like stopped following me after that because I didn't continue to make songs about Schuylkill County. Isn't that wild? And that's like as soon as they heard the next thing come out, they're like, oh, that's not what we were here for.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's how it goes.
It's certainly weird, but that's the proof that you have no idea who your audience is. You have no control, zero control over who your audience is. The second you release a song, just to take it from the music perspective, this applies to all art. Like if you do paintings or you do, tattoos or whatever, if you release it, it doesn't matter what it was about for you. Because now it's about whoever hears it.
Exactly.
I don't know how you are with music, but I can't really ingest new music without being in the right frame of mind for it. Like I got to be in a receptive place to be able to take
usually
on
the car.
New music. Of course, yeah, certainly.
Driving around.
Certainly.
That's the best place.
And I almost kind of regret that for longer road trips, I enjoy podcasts. Now, not that I love podcasts. I'm never going to be upset about that. But in doing that, I've replaced this this period of time where I would just listen to new music or try new things out, or maybe, see, oh, this song featured this guy. Let me check out that guy's band or whatever.
Right. Try to get outside of just what the algorithm gives you and seek things out yourself. Yeah. I know what you mean.
But I hate when people tell me to listen to some band that they like because they're like, oh, you're going to love them. Yeah. As if I wouldn't love it if people would do that for us, like I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I'm being a little bit of a fucking bigot dickhead.
Yeah.
But like, I do it for other people just willy nilly. I guess I don't know if it's that I feel like I'm maybe we're not deserving of that or something. Yeah. But just earlier today, I was with my intern Carlos and we're walking around doing a lap, and we walked into this guy he does amazing art, and I think you would benefit from. I'll send you the picture too.
Sure.
He's like, his booth is like literally where we are, one block over, and the artwork is like, I don't know how to describe it, but he really locked in. It feels like it's comprised of a bunch of different other artist elements. Yeah. But in him doing his rendition of it or his flair, it is his like own creation. And so he bought a Tyler the Creator image, and I'm like, I want this guy to do album artwork for us. Yeah. Like they're like, he does really cool portraits, and they're like line drawing portraits. So you wouldn't expect that they could be too good, but he's able to texturize with different colors and patterns and designs and stuff to really knock it out of the park. And I like grabbed his number. I was like, I need to get this guy to do some stuff for us.
Yeah.
I was like, do you take commissions? Because this is awesome.
Exactly.
And
always keeping an eye out.
But you kind of have to, right?
Of course, there's great people. And I guess a question I'd have for you is like, what I always ask myself when I am writing a song, producing it, whatever, and it's about to come out, I always like the prerequisite for me is always like, is this something? And maybe it's because I don't have a lot of like art friends. I'm not going to lie. I have a lot of sports friends and those aren't art people. But I always ask myself, is this something that someone's going to pull up and show their friend when they're with their friend? Because I know as a friend in a sports guy group that if we just like an artist because we felt something or because the lyrics touched us or otherwise, we don't necessarily say, yo, you got to check this out. Like this song has it in my bag.
I don't know.
Now,
if you reach a certain threshold, I think you do.
You
right?
would. Yeah. Because there are other people out there who aren't like, you know, that don't have that like to share music. But like in my personal experience, I don't go out and like, you know, like an example would be, I don't know, that new like pop punk album that Hoodie just dropped, right? I wouldn't go to my best friend and be like, yo, you know how we used to listen to Hoodie Allen? Like, listen to his new music, man. Like, it's crazy. Would I ask my girlfriend the same thing? Absolutely, because she's like, it's a different relationship.
Her role is to be punished by whatever new music I found that I need to overplay to her.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, do you ask yourself, like right before you're about to put anything out creatively, is this something that people will pull up and show a friend because it's word of mouth what you're going for? Or are we now just going for digital?
Okay.
I guess both.
So 2-tiered.
Yeah.
The reason I brought up that guy who does the paintings is I mentioned to him, I was like, he had an MF Doom like picture that he did, like a portrait that he did. And I was like, that's what made me think like, oh, maybe this dude will do commissions. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him if that was the kind of rap that he listened to. And he's like, oh yeah, like that's the kind of stuff I like. I was like, do you like Sage Francis or anything like that? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I want you to check out my friend Coconut Wolf's record.
Oh yeah.
And so like I love Cody. Like I really believe in him as like a lyricist. Like he's a really brilliant lyricist. He's a guy you can catch on a park bench or.
You ran into him on that photo shoot, and you probably still have that picture. Remember that?
Oh
we
yeah,
were on
yeah.
My photo shoot. He was hanging out on Beaver.
Oh my god, bro!
And you're
I
like,
totally
I need
forgot
this
I did
just in case there's a future collab.
Yeah,
well,
I snagged a picture of the two of you.
There has not been one in the works, but you never know.
Let me tell you how that has developed. I have a friend of mine, good friend of mine, moved back in the area, and during the pandemic, I gave him an interface, and I said, hey, you always want to record, look stuff up. He's the kind of guy that I can give him like a toothpick, a knife, and like a bucket of peanut butter, and he's gonna like have an entire house built, and he will survive, bro. And so I gave him this interface, and I basically like kind of let him do his thing, and he goes back and forth between Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta and Pennsylvania. Like winter, he goes there, and then summers he comes here. He's a martial arts instructor. Yeah, for sure. So he goes back and forth, and so he came back after like 2 years of travel, and our friendship has always been that we like interact really closely for a couple years, and then he'll disappear, or I'll disappear, and we don't see each other for a couple years. And
some of the best friendships though, because you can come back and share.
Listen, it's a vice and a virtue, man. I love this kid to death, and he is like. He's a great human being, and he has a hard time kind of like I have always respected and admired him as an artist. So to me, I look at him as this visionary that maybe has trouble because of the team he has around him and being able to execute the larger, bigger projects. But what I'm getting at is I introduced him to Cody, Coconut Wolf. Right. And I said, hey, I was like, I don't know that you two will even get along or have anywhere near similar musical influences, but I want you guys to meet and like, kind of just I literally punished them by making them like sit in the studio and like listen to each other's tracks where they're that awkward, you're like yes, this is me. And so but they had respect for what each other was doing. Like the thing that I thought would be embarrassing and in feeling was embarrassing for both of them, they both coalesced it immediately. Immediately they were like they had nice shit to say about each other's things. And so I got them working on some music together. And I just listened to the record the other day. It's not out yet, but I was in Lewistown building a green screen riser that I need to build for this green screen music video where Relic Arts is doing for this new single Spitfire, which I'll play you afterwards. And while I was down there, Mike was like, hey, you want if I come down with Coconut and we're just going to like say hey and hang out for a little bit. And I was like, sure. I had Nick, my bass player, was up with me. And so we were working and getting wood and driving down the highway from Lowe's, holding on to wood on the outside on the top of my car, like the worst. But I and I didn't even get the project finished that day. I always do this thing where I'm like, I could totally do this massive construction project and get it done in maybe 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. So he came down, and him and Cody listened to the record on the way down, and they were kind of talking about it, how Cody had just heard it for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was like, what did you think? And he was like, it's really good. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And so Nick, who is like this perfect litmus test, he like loves like Iron Maiden and Gwen Stefani and like Blink-182. Just all over the place, Madball. Like it's like he has all kinds of respect, but also loves 311. Loves a lot of reggae, which is great for having a bass player. Hopefully, everybody's bass player loves reggae because it's great. So I said, Mike, I was like, play the record for him. I was like, he's like the perfect litmus test because he listens to all kind of music. You'll get a genuine reaction out of him because he doesn't like I don't think he has the capacity to bullshit people. He was in a really bad car accident when he was 17 that he barely. Like he should not have survived by all means. And I think he has been permanently brain damaged and stuck as 7. He's a forever child. His episode dropped and it's like Nick Walters, Basis of Relic Hearts, forever child. I literally bought him a Blink-182 like Funko Pop set with like a vinyl for Enema of the State because he took me to go see them. Yeah. There were 3 tickets. There were 3 tickets.
Just recently?
Yeah, just as like in Hershey, like right at the tail end of May.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, I'm not sure how much those tickets were, but I bought you this thing because I saw it and I'm like, I know you'll love it.
Cheap,
and it was only like $50. I was like, whatever. I was like, I don't know how much the tickets were, but I was like, hey, I appreciate it. He was like,
you guys in the pit or you have stadium seats?
We were stadium seats, but we were in a good spot, like good section off the stage left or stage right.
I'd love to be at that show.
It was great. And so he was like, yeah, he's like, I think his dad passed away. And so he had to go through all of his bank statements and stuff. He's like, I think I found the purchase that was the tickets. And I think he spent over like $2.5 grand on these tickets. And I was like, oh my God. So I was like, okay, my gift is not enough to compensate for that. But like, I hope the thought counts here. Yeah. Where was I going with that?
You were talking about how Nick and Coconut were riding down to watch you guys both.
So Mike, Cloudy Skies and Coconut Wolf are the two artists that I got to link up. I didn't say Cloudy's name yet.
That's a good collab branding.
The C, man. Yeah. CS and CW.
Alliteration just clicks with me right away. So.
Same, dude. I'm addicted to it, actually.
Huge. Anything I ever do, I have to have alliteration. So.
Well, certainly, I think that it's a really clever way to, if you can find a way to mix it into your rhyme scheme, is like even it adds nuanced layer to the rhyme scheme. But so they played it for Nick, and Nick was maybe only like 2 or 3 songs in, and he was like, "Man, I mess with this." So he went into the back of his car and pulled out his bass and just started like playing along to like what they were doing. And they were like, "Dude, I knew we should get a bass player." But there were a couple times where these like head turn moments, and like Nick was like, "That's really good. I love that." Happening. And so they're seeing this live reaction to their record for the first time, and it's really good. So that collab has not happened yet between you and Coconut Wolf, but we got to find a way to make it happen. And I think we'll talk after about how I want to link and like get you in touch with these dudes.
Fresh Coconut.
Dude, you guys absolutely could do something fun together. It would take you out of your niche a little bit, maybe.
Oh yeah, I've heard his music. It's brilliant lyrics. As a lyricist, I really respect it, dude.
But this record's like a throwback to like the golden era of hip hop. Like it's got a lot of like I don't know how to describe it. I wish I had anything to play for you because I tried to get him to send it to me yesterday so I could play it. For Carlos, and he refuses to do it because it's not out. And he's like, I haven't even sent it to anybody else that we worked on the project.
That's cool, though. I think we get it more as artists that, like, kind of back to my original question, how we are actively like showing other people what we like. And I just wonder if like people who don't create and, you know, people who have never done anything creative and just, you know, other normal things, will they pull up my music video and will they show their friend, or will they be like, it's not good enough to do that. I won't waste someone's time. You know, that's something I always think about. And I'm like, I think I'm really good at, it's kind of like the Lil Dicky thing, right? Like putting enough comedy and parody in there.
Right.
To where now it's like, I don't have to show my friend the music.
I'm actually a little heartbroken.
I'm just going to show him the comedy, you know?
Right. I'm a little heartbroken that Theo Von just like, I don't know I haven't really dove into this yet. I just heard that Theo Von was saying about how Lil Dicky like steals some of his jokes for the show Dave. But let me just say, like, I am a Lil Dicky stan. Like I thought he was brilliant whenever I saw one of his first music videos that came out. I forget what the name
Ex-Boyfriend was the first one. That was
Is that the one where he's in the bathroom with the boyfriend?
Ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
First ever video he puts out, 1 million views overnight.
And it was because it was great. It was so much. It was literally a fun little journey.
You had to show
for sure,
no matter all your friends. Actually.
Right? Yeah. You're like, this is hilarious. Check this out. So there's
see what you said. This is hilarious. It's not like, okay, this was a fire song. It was hilarious. It was a great song, but you're showing your friend because it's funny.
Of course, and from his perspective. You know, all of it was kind of like this meta commentary on a dick joke. So it's all funny from the get-go if you think about it. His name is Lil Dicky. You're like, okay, all right. And you don't know what to expect. That his artist journey from then on was to show that he's not just a funny rapper. Like he's actually really good at what he does. So I respect what he does because all crafts are to be respected in my eyes. Whether I can do it or not, or I think it's a good craft that exists in this world or not, or whatever, I'm still like, hey, respect. That's pretty good. That's really good what you do. And everything after that just kind of followed up with like that same level of detail. And then Dave comes out on Hulu. Wow. I'm addicted to that show. I show it to all my artist friends that I'm like, you need to watch, because he touches on the I don't know, the neurotic insecurities that all artists have over the most menial things and all the things that he overthinks about. It's like I feel like I'm looking into a mirror and not in any way to suggest that
Bike Week or Arts Fest.
Right. This is Daytona. Not in any way to suggest that like I'm on his level or anything like that, but in a way to say like he really like emphasizes and illustrates, whether it's hyperbole or not, how ridiculous artists feel and are in general when it comes to thinking about their art. So to answer your question finally 10 minutes later about do I think about whether or not when we release something that song will be a song that people will want to show to other people? No. But indicative of that question is that it's after you've created the song that you think that. And so which is, that's totally fine. That's a perfect secondary question to have. Like, I wonder. That's great.
Well, let me ask you this, because I feel like that show explores how Lil Dicky presented himself as me being myself wasn't going to be good enough as an artist. I had to do other things. He takes us back to his childhood about how he always kind of had to be a goofball. He always had to be the clown. Yeah. He always had to overcompensate.
The end of season 2 was great.
Right, because he just wasn't good enough. Whether he wasn't good looking enough or he wasn't strong enough.
It's imposter syndrome.
Exactly. And so the whole show explores like, okay, I have to sit here by myself and think about everything I'm going to say to everybody on tour. Literally script everything out. I'm going to have to think about fan interactions and how I might interact with somebody when they say this. All of it is just like him not ever being himself. Right. And then at the end realizing like, you know, with Brad Pitt, like you got to love yourself first.
Yeah. So I wonder, that's like, season 3. No spoilers for people who haven't seen it. I want people to watch that show because I think it's a great.
You have to have seen it by now. Come on. Right?
It's been out. Yeah, this season was really good too. I did not expect.
If you haven't seen it, you at least know.
Every season, the first season's great because it kind of encapsulates his early career and his start. My favorite
season for sure. Yeah.
Well,
because I watched him go through all that.
Exactly.
So I saw the Kickstarter. Like I was right there.
See, I didn't see the Kickstarter.
The Kickstarter was amazing.
But following the journey and being a part of it, you as a fan, whether loosely or not, I don't think anybody saw that video and I'm sure some people were obviously like immediate fans, like, hey, what's the next thing this guy puts out?
Right.
But some people, it was probably a one and done. Yep. But it doesn't matter because he still reached a bunch of people in that pool of that first batch. Right. And that's a platform from which, or a plateau from where you can expand and grow from there. But yeah, every season's gotten progressively better.
Yeah, because a lot of artists, like they are so celebrated for being themselves. Right. That's why we celebrate artists, because we see them perform, we listen to the music, we watch the music videos, and it's just like, that's what makes you a successful artist. It's like not having to think about what I'm going to say to the fans. Not maybe you rehearse, but you know, you have moments on stage. I think about like MGK, like having moments on stage that are authentic with the fans and not having to be something that's forced.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's so celebrated and Lil Dicky like just trying to get there.
Yeah.
And like Jack Harlow, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but like Jack Harlow, like that's a whole nother thing, right? Because Lil Dicky and Jack Harlow look so alike, but they're so different. Like they couldn't be more different,
right?
And their interaction in the show, but
then to think about Jack Harlow being on the show shows that they both share the sentimentality. Yeah. That what is going on here is just clever and good.
Yeah.
Being self-aware is it's a gift and a curse. If you can find a way to harness being self-aware in a positive way, you can actually escape a lot of like the shame that you feel about all of the I'm who I am.
Yeah, and I relate to Lil Dicky because I feel like he's a person who's so calculated. Like they show him on music videos
and insecure.
It's like you're envisioning everything that could possibly go wrong. Your mind's going a million miles a minute. But this only happens to me when I'm in these creative spaces.
Right.
It doesn't happen to me when I'm playing video games. It doesn't happen to me when I'm watching sports. It just happens to me when I'm in the studio, on a video shoot, doing a show. In any situation, even in this interview, it's like anytime you're putting content out, I'm always like, how could this go? What will I say? I should be prepared, right? It's like over preparation.
I'll be
definitely
honest.
Lil Dicky, like way more than me even. Like he's crazy.
So I'll be honest. Yeah. I usually do sit down and whether it's like an hour before or like a couple days before, I'll be like assembling questions that I want to ask. I have done that for every guest almost since I started, maybe after like the first couple of episodes, because I kind of realized that I did enjoy actually having these things that were topic or building points to kind of get to, and not when the conversation comes to a lull, but because they're things that I want to hear this person's input on.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that for you at all today because I was like, well, first off, I knew we were going to be able to sit here and bullshit. Like I'm looking forward to this episode when it's done, looking back and being like, I'll listen to it again and be like, oh shit, I forgot I said that.
You and I
oh
can
shit,
read
I
each
forgot
other
you said
pretty
that.
well. Yeah.
Right. But
feed off each other pretty well.
So I guess like, no, I don't think about that. I don't ask that secondary question. Yeah. But what I would say is I'm grateful to you that you don't ask that question beforehand, so you don't influence the art based off of who you think the audience is going to be, because I think that's your quickest recipe for disaster. Yeah. Because you start worrying about what everybody else wants, and then you start losing track of where you fit into that narrative. And I have a so this new song that Spitfire that hopefully is coming out in October, and I got some really cool shit I can tell you off air. I'm really excited for it, but all I was focused on was when Nate sent the first demo to me, I loved so much about it because it felt like a modern rock version of Rage Against the Machine a little bit. Wow. And so I don't want to be Zach, that's not like direction I want to go, but it really has that bounce and that sway to it. And he wrote it on a Telecaster. He just got
some feelings out of people then for sure.
Tom Morello's primary instrument that he's known for is the Fender Telecaster. And so Nate just got one. He was like, I wanted to write like a Rage style kind of riff in this vein. And so he did. And where it started to where it is now, it is like night and day. Yep. But where it ended up, it's a song I want to listen to. Yep. Like usually by the time we're done writing it, I'm sick of it. Yep. Now imagine, working with other artists and having to do their music video where I got to listen to 2 or 3 second increments of their 3 to 4 minute long song and repeat over and over and over again, cycling back through. Like I know every song I probably ever edited pretty intimately. And so I don't really ask that question after either, because I'm like, I guess if I had to ask, yeah, sure. I think it's good enough because I'm sharing it with everybody, which I almost in my imposter syndrome built up self never do. Mm-hmm. Like I'm never like, hey, check out my thing. But I'm like, I'm in a place now where I'm listening to the song. I'm like, I can't fucking wait for people to hear it. You're sleeping if you're not checking. If you don't check this out when it drops, like you're the one missing out because this song fucking rips. Yeah. And I could not be more proud of it. So I think it will happen because I think it's got that kind of potential and capability. But my focus tends to be more on just getting through the songwriting process and finding, because I have so much I want to say always and that I could say on anything. So I don't want to like pigeonhole myself to anything, but I love poetry. I've always loved poetry. I've loved it since I was a kid. I've written poetry since I was a kid. And so I approach it from a writing perspective. I write a bunch of stuff that isn't going to a song at all. It's just lyrics down on a page, poetry. Right. And then if it goes to, if I find like a melody that works with the song that we're working on, I'm like, oh, okay, all right. I'll kind of like come up, like you ad lib some words to kind of get a rhythm or a pentameter to like how you're gonna, a cadence to your delivery for whatever the words will be. And then I let those sounds I don't know, it's weird. They kind of inform how I feel about what word I feel like would fit in this weird little trill melody that I threw in there. And then I'm then at that point, it's like, okay, now I just got to figure out how I make this thing that I loved about this line. Yeah. How do I expand above and below that? And then what's the next part look like? Right. I feel like if I just focus on that, then at least I'm enjoying that aspect of it. And that's got to be it, because you got to enjoy what you're writing and putting out. And I think people should feel excited about what they're putting out. Last night I saw a TikTok clip of NF performing a song that I don't know if it was the first time he's ever performed it, but it's a song he wrote about his mom that passed away that's on his new record. And it's really, really, really good. I mean, the whole record is good. I'm an NF stan, like non-ashamed of it whatsoever. Like, I think he's a genuinely talented dude.
Still has never had to use TikTok, right? Isn't that wild? When every other artist has an NF has just been so organic with that fan base that he has not had to do that.
Well, when you have real music, you don't have to do that. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, his music is pretty visceral, I think. Yeah. And he's super self-aware, and in his music, he's another one. Like, not to compare him to Lil Dicky, but like, I think that he is vulnerably open and honest about himself in a way that it's almost cathartic for people to hear it. Cause you're like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, I'm not the only one who thinks these fucking ridiculous thoughts of like, that are riddling my brain through my anxiety or this, that, and
everything. He was never like that in his music, but through the show we find out.
Oh yeah, and that's what I love, because I'm like, oh, that's where that comes from. Yep. But so he sings a song, and he kind of has like he kind of emotionally breaks down at the end of the song, is what the caption says. But I really think he was just wiping sweat from his eyes. Yeah. But really, really powerful. Like, it doesn't feel like a scripted thing he's giving you. He's like, the scripted thing is the song. Right. But I had to sing a song last October when we opened for Drowning Pool, and it was the first time I had sung this song that I didn't write the lyrics to. It was Boss, my guitar player who passed away, wrote it, and this was our first show since he had passed away. We had a long climb to get back on the horse, and I was definitely like choking up while singing it. So it's hard when you write music that you genuinely are passionate about. Yeah. I'm sure this is how Comeback Aaron feels for you, bro. I'm sure. But yeah, I think like, you can't focus on who the audience is when you're writing, but afterwards you have to figure out who the audience is.
Like, two of the best pieces of advice I get, and this is songwriting and just being in the studio in general. I think one of them is, most of the people who listen to our music just appreciate the fact that we're doing something creatively. And like, for those majority of people who just don't create, and they are normal and they don't go out and try to give themselves all these projects, and they don't make music or content or art or whatever, I think they don't stress about like the little things that we do. Nobody is thinking about the shit that we're worried about. I finally like started to realize, like, I'm stressing over like a click or something that I did an ad lib wrong, or this doesn't match up. Like, just let it go. Like, people don't pick your song apart like that. And then the other piece of advice I got was that, like, I always want the track to sound like it did in my head when I came into the studio. Yeah. But the problem is, I think I sound like Mac Miller or Drake, and it's like, I will never sound like them or get there. And I'm like, forget about all that. I don't need to sound like my inspirations. They're just there to inspire me. And I'm like,
you are the manifestation of the collaboration. Like, all that stuff coming together that has defined how you think and write and create. That's what's making Matty Fresh. That's what and your name is great. Like,
and
Matty
when it
Fresh
comes out, it doesn't always sound like it does in my head. It's hard. Well, but I got over that finally, where I'm like, it's going to sound how it sounds naturally when I'm in the booth. Like, that's the best I can do. Right.
But also, do you spend time doing, like, when you track, do you only track that one time and then you're done? Because like, I did scratch vocals for Spitfire. Yeah. The first vocals that I did, there are a decent portion of them are in the final mix and master for the track. But I go back after I kind of sit on it, and after I give myself like a rough mix to see how it sits and how it sounds, to be like, okay, now that I've seen it, I've heard it. Right. Without me having to sing it, I'm now in a place where I'm not focusing on singing it. I can actually listen and observe and be like, oh, this is what I would change.
Right.
And so
it's like what we just talked about with the Comeback Aaron music video, how I kind of came to you and I was like, yeah, we're going to have one day. This is going to be it.
Right.
Like, it's a sharp deadline. That's how I am in the studio. Like, I've trained myself to kind of be very, not one take. Obviously, you have to do more than that, but like kind of a one day session guy.
Yeah.
I think that, like,
do you have a home recording setup, or do you go to studios?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, and it's not because my engineers or my producers are like rushing me. It's just how I am.
Yeah.
I work better. I do my best work, and I'm sure a ton of people can relate to this. I do my best work when my back's against the wall, and I know that I have to get something done. So like, yeah, I do the same thing you do. Like, I sit on it for a while, and then if it's absolutely terrible, I will go back and fix it. But like, I've learned to like love the version that I come out with. And like, part of that is not that I don't want to go back in the studio, because sometimes I do. It's just a matter of coming out of there and realizing, yeah, I made a song in 4 hours, and that's okay. I don't have to beat myself up about that because Juice WRLD has done it in 10 minutes.
Right.
So like I think that's the most important part. It doesn't really matter how long it takes you, 5 minutes or 5 years. I have other songs that I probably will never release because they're just not done, or, you know,
sometimes you get too far removed from them.
Exactly. And it's like hard to capture that back. Yeah. That first moment. And that's why for me, like I said, I don't really do things how I think, and you could weigh in on this. Is this how most people are doing things? They're recording a bunch of music, storing it, and then having a plan to waterfall, like kind of release it? Or are there still artists like me who are very much like idea, studio, oh crap, now I got to think about how to release this. Like, didn't have it necessarily in the bank. Because that's what I'm opposite of. Like,
yeah, you never you never create like a catalog that you set on and
but
then
like
release.
I feel like I should be, you know, and like I don't do it enough.
Well, the hardest thing we have to do is sit on something that we're really excited
and
about.
And my time sensitive stuff too, I guess, hurts.
Yeah, and so that kind of creates a deadline for you. And like you said, like nothing helps you operate faster than having a deadline, right? So yeah, when your back's against the wall and you're 2 hours away from whenever you need to have this song uploaded, it's like, oh yeah, I got to do the album art. Yeah, like there's no one way, man. Everybody's doing it every different way, and some ways are more successful than others, and some are more successful because of the way that artist music sounds or who that artist is and who they know. Like all the variables that go into whether or not you are releasing in some way that is right. Like what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, right.
But it is good if you can have a catalog. Like we're trying to build one right now, but what I'm trying to do is in doing that, I don't want to sit on. I'm trying to write things that I feel like are timeless, feel current, but also I want to have staying power and last. So it's okay. I don't want to sit on 10 songs for a year and a half.
Yeah.
I can sit on this song that we finished officially in June until October because I'm trying to put a plan together for it. That's fine. And simultaneously be working on the next thing. But I'm not trying to give myself, I got to have one song a month done. So at the end of the year, I've got a 12 song album to drop. And so there's a benefit to doing both. It just depends on what your artistry and workflow looks like. And workflow is the operative word here. Like you have to have a system that works for you. So if getting inspired and then going to the studio and having a track ready and then getting it tracked and then walking out is a way that makes sense for you to get it done, one of the things I can say you're definitely doing is capturing the passion of doing it because you're in this place where you're doing it from the excitement of writing.
I can't relate with that. Like being like, let's say an artist on a label records an album, it doesn't drop for 2 years after they were in those sessions.
I don't think that happens much anymore.
Yeah, I know, like, I watched, like, documentaries from just, like, old VH1 stuff, and I was seeing a lot of getting shelved. And, like, artists, like, and it just, to me, I'm like, how could you ever possibly feel the same way?
Well, here's the other slippery slope to the label side. Yeah. You could sign and get signed to a label who likes you, and they may have only signed you and given you that bonus because, one, they know you got to pay it back, and two, you sound like an artist that is they already have out and or have dumped more money into, so they can't have you out there being a threat to this other investment they have. So they can pull you, get your record, own the masters, shelve it. And you're like, oh.
I don't feel the same way.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the behavior that kind of pushed labels the way of the dodo. Yeah. There are still some great labels out there, but they've realized they can scale back on the size of the operation if they've got the right team in place. And so it really, I mean, what label would we sign to has any label, if I talk to the people and I believe in the people, they're doing what they are doing really, really well. And in a good label, whatever that means, you've got infrastructure in place that helps with, everything, every part of that journey. They're like a small business startup company that helps all their small businesses, right? Yeah. They want to help you get to where you want to be, and they want to kind of capitalize on it. Right. Any label that's going to pick you up now knows that you're already making money before they pull you in, because it's like there aren't development deals anymore, and that's okay. Yeah. That means it's up to the artist to figure out who they are. And we're in an era where authenticity matters more than anything. So there's nothing worse than a band or an artist who's trying really hard to be something that absolutely nobody buys in the first place. Right. So you doing your small town America, this is who I am, this is who I write music for. Turns out small town America is, Scoop County, bro. Yeah. That's one dot on the map. And
Cool
there
region.
are thousands of those dots all over the place.
yeah.
So if you write the right song that kind of is already catering to the people that you love to write music for,
Right.
your reach now becomes every one of those little holes. How do I get into those little holes? Well, I can tell you right now, Facebook marketing or Twitter marketing, the cost is significantly lower if you're doing it by county or by state and picking, areas where you know that your budget's not going to get, just ransacked early. That you're trying to push in New York or LA, good luck. Everybody else and their brother has a project of some sort that they're trying to push.
Even Philly, like coming up, seemed like it was
Any metropolitan area.
Yeah, and like I guess I would, it's tough because like I always struggle with like my identity. I would never call myself a musician because I didn't grow up and
Yeah, you
grab
haven't
a
earned
guitar,
that title. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, it seems to me
You
like
got 5 million streams
I
on
know,
a track
but
you put together, you conceptualized and put this thing together.
Yeah.
This is imposter syndrome incarnate.
It
Can we
seems
just cut to a
ignorant to
video
me,
of him
though.
real quick? Cut to a quick video of him. This is a guy who thinks he is not good enough to do what he does. He thinks 5 million streamers who ever listen to the song are morons because he's not even an artist. Like you
I'm an
are.
art. I'll give myself that. I was just saying,
You're a musician, dude.
a musician standpoint, obviously, like my whole background is not picking up a piano or picking up a guitar. Like
You're gatekeeping
it
yourself.
came for sports.
You're
So,
gatekeeping
like-
yourself from being called a musician because you've set this arbitrary archetype, this construct in your brain.
just a sports fan.
That's
That's
what
all
artists
I
are. Yeah, I just fuck around and make jokes about sports over here to a beat in time. Oh, and I produce music videos for them. Oh, and I get all these streams for them. Like that's not by accident, dude. You've got a Jason O really helped me with this, man, because this is
He
exactly
connected us,
where I
yeah.
was. Yeah, but he helped me with this part of that part of my journey.
Right.
It's all the journey, dude. Like all these are steps that everybody goes through. I feel like
Yeah.
you do it wrong until you figure out how to do it right. You keep growing along the way, and I didn't feel like I had earned it because I hadn't. I don't know. I guess had enough streams or met this metric for success. Or I used to. I actually loved when I ran into people in town that were not supportive of me because I was like gone traveling and touring and coming
Good
back.
Stories
And
the same way, man. Yeah.
and then you hear people be like, oh, well, they're not a real band because what? We don't play the fucking bars every like Tuesday or like we're not in a residency at our local town bar where we're going to be there every Thursday. Like, what does a real band mean? Like, what is a
so
real
many
artist?
people-
What is a
Yeah, even with like Skook State of Mind that absolutely hated my guts in high school. And that song came out right after high school. And then there are people on social media, like I guess back then, like probably Facebook was the strongest one. 2014, Twitter was big too. Instagram had just started out. And just like back on social media, like, oh, I love your music. You related to me so much. And I'm just like, you couldn't stand me in high school. And that's a great feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an amazing feeling.
The come around is good, bro.
Yeah, man.
So in taking this lap around Arts Fest earlier today, that was the other thing it's an obvious takeaway, but it was the takeaway that I thought of in that moment. I was like, it's kind of great. Like what makes art is just there was a guy who does the sewers of the world. And I don't know if they were coasters. I almost picked them up until I realized
sick, yeah.
And it's like sewer grates from all around the world. I was like, I would never think of that, but that's that guy's thing. And he's got walls wrapped with like little rug mats and little coasters and stuff. I'm like, it's
someone out there. Yeah. There's somebody out there, probably a lot of people out there who appreciate that.
Exactly. So who am I to say what is and isn't art?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that it's something else. And I'm thinking I don't fit into the category of this like archetype that I've developed in my brain.
You're right.
Based off of my
just based
influences.
on how I came up. Like came up in a very small town with no culture.
Right.
Right. Our culture was like
secondhand
big
culture
trucks
from all the
and
cities
Jeeps
around
and
you.
coal and it's Schuylkill County. So like I've never fully embraced like that lifestyle, but I do like part of my identity is small town. And when I think about it, like, yeah, I was a small town. My dad had season tickets up here when I was 5-6 years old. I've been to over 100 Penn State home football games. And my identity is here in Penn State. My identity as a sports fan, my identity as, someone who can relate to other people. It just doesn't feel to me like a musician. I guess I have to get over that. It feels more to me like an entertainer.
You absolutely
feels like
need to
an
get over
entertainer.
that. Yeah, no.
But who's to say, entertainer, musician? What's the difference, right?
Right. Well,
Just
you
a
can
label.
be an
It's just a
entertainer that
label.
doesn't do music, I guess. But like
Yeah,
you're that's the other thing is like you are an entertainer.
Yeah.
And
that's what I like to think of. I like to think that if there's a room of people, I can entertain them. And I could sit well with that.
you're both. You're both. You just have to accept that you wear two hats
right.
and you decide which hat you put on at that point in time. Yeah, dude, mindset's the other part of the artist journey that is like the most important part to get on lockdown. Absolutely. Because you can, like you said, you don't like to spend too long on a track and then, make, oh, I could redo that better. I could redo that better. Yeah. There is a place for that. Like, you should audit your work as you go. And if you decide you want to make a change to it, you should, but you can't make the perfect the enemy of the good.
Is it sort of cliche to say, like, have you experienced this, that think about the times in your life where you felt the most comfortable? And you kind of looked up at the sky, and I've done this where I'm like, everything seems to be going almost too right. Like, I'm very happy.
Yeah, when's the other shoe drop?
And it's just like, how could this happen? Like, we have the imposter syndrome thing, I get that. But like other moments outside and just like personal life and not necessarily music life, where it's like, wow, how is everything like lining up? Everything's great. I'm so happy. Like, this is awesome, right? It's a great feeling. And then you feel comfortable, right? Your music that you've written when you're comfortable versus when you're in the most dire straits, depression situation in your life.
Yeah.
I have always felt, it sucks, but I've always felt like
it's
more productive and better. Like just insanely motivated when I was in the worst place possible. And I listened back to the music that came out, and it's not necessarily like probably a lot of artists where it's a just direct representation of how I was feeling, but it's some of my best music, if that makes sense. And I know the bad place that I was in when it came out.
Yeah. Rage against the dying of the light, dude. Like, we all want to express, so we have something we want to get out, not in a pick me, like, please pay attention to me kind of way. But I mean, it is pretty much empirically, data drivenly proven that musicians or, of any kind, or artists of any kind, a lot of really genuine art comes from a lot of really genuine, like, torment and borderline insanity.
No matter what kind of music it is. Listen, like, I have happy, upbeat songs that came from the worst time I've ever gone through.
Right.
It's wild. Yeah.
And so there's something to be said about that. Yeah. Like, I mean, for me, I don't find myself in that comfortable position very often, because I'm like, what's next? Like, past and present, obviously, like, this is stuff I can't change. This is stuff that I can influence, but I can't necessarily change. Yeah. How do I feel right now? I'm trying to be better about that in my life in general, but I just said this to somebody the other day, and it kind of actually hurt me to hear myself say it out loud. I was like, damn, that is really sad. But like, my parents split up when I was like relatively young, but I was like 10, I think 11 or 12. And so I don't want to say we were poor. We just were not like middle. I don't think we were in middle class. We were closer to it then than certainly now, but we were never in that category. And so like, my parents struggled, but I don't think they never passed that on to me. Like, I had a great childhood. Like, I remember I used to go to like the park in my apartment. My parents let me run in the backwoods and like run trails next to little creeks. And I remember the first time I took a poop in the creek, and I was like 5 years old. Right. I was like, this feels weird.
It is the best feeling.
But like, these are whatever, for whatever reason, these are like moments in your life that you kind of like, whether you shudder in the shower for later or whatever, like you kind of remember. Yeah, there exactly. Yeah. And so I guess, between that and then they finally built a house and we moved into it, and I was like, oh, I've got my own room. This is pretty tight. Yeah. And then like a few years later they get divorced, and then it's like a free for all. And so I realized that I have always felt like I never had a real home. And so this place is kind of like the closest thing that I had to it, because I spent so much time here. Yeah. But because I've always had the rug pulled out from under me, I don't know what I'm going to do when I buy my first home. Right. I'll be like, because I'll be able to pay for it. That, I'm never worried about that. But like, I'll be like, I don't know what that, I might cry. I don't even know. But when you have the rug pulled out from you so often, it is hard to find those moments where you can sit and kind of just look out and be like, things are going really good. Now, I will say, as I've gone through life and realized, well, there's obviously a bunch of shit I can't change, and it's up to me to develop the things that I want to change in my life now. Yeah. I'm busting my ass right now. I'm on my grind to get to where I want to be in every other aspect of my life. That's
you think you'll ever be satisfied?
I fucking hope not, because part of the thing that gets you going further is just the drive to do better.
This is where I'm at. Right?
I'm gonna do better tomorrow than I did today, and I'm gonna explore my art in new ways tomorrow that I hadn't gotten the time to explore get to explore today. Yeah. But what was the question?
just a matter of comfort. Like, I get in these spells where I'm so comfortable that it's almost detrimental to my creativity, because I don't have anything to prove to anybody right now.
Comfortability is complacency.
But it feels great.
There's this artist.
You know?
There's an artist. If I can find him, or if I see him pop up again, I will show it to you.
Yeah.
He writes like a million times over on like a city block corner or whatever. Your comfort zone will kill you.
Yeah.
Because once you're comfortable and you lose the hunger. They say that if you want to be successful, you have to want to be successful more than you want to breathe air.
Yeah.
And you need air to live. So when you're hungry and you're starving, you're a little broke, or you don't really, your music career is not where you want it to be. Of course, you're going to be hungry. If you're depressed, you're like, I got to change something. So that hunger is more visceral, and that more visceral experience coming from all of the insane, depressed, hurt, people is what drives, I think, the most beautiful art. Even comedy is just tragedy reframed. It's literally,
and for me, it's like, not that I deserve it any more or any less than the next guy, but that's why I've always struggled kind of with like my identity as like putting music out and doing this whole entertainment thing, is because I'm like, I know that the consequence for me is that if I do get really comfortable and I'm just okay, and maybe I half-ass a song, or maybe I don't have that fire, guess what? I always have sports.
Yeah. But the problem, you're right.
That
and
will
it's
never
good.
change.
It's good that you have that. The worry is,
so I fall back.
What's fucked up is you've already told me that you love writing these songs for people that come from small towns. So the thing that you have to have ultimately is just empathy, because we're all going through shit. We're all going through it. We've all got our fucking boulder, man. Like, we're all carrying our thing uphill. And will I ever feel like comfortable and safe and relaxed? I fucking hope so. I said no earlier, but yeah, man, damn, it would be nice. It's a great
feeling, but it's a trick.
Right, for sure. Trick, but there's also something to be said for the fact that, like, you said, even though you said the prior part to that, you also said you write music for people in small communities. And what's funny about that is that means you have empathy for the person,
or just to celebrate athletes too, like anything like that, right?
Exactly. So for whatever,
it's never been about me. It's never been about me.
Well, it's a little bit about you. All of it's got some of the ego in it, right? Like we all write it because we're like, no, I think I could dance like that.
Yeah, it's just wild that I could, like, in Skook State of Mind, I'm in the video, right? So when I go around, people know me. In State College, the music videos, they never came out for any of the Penn State songs. Saquon, Trace, Jahan were all highlight videos.
Right.
Not that I did it on purpose, just, some things didn't work out. And it is crazy to get up on stage here and be like, this is your introduction to me. You've only heard me. You've never seen me.
Right.
And it's kind of being like BB Rexa. Great example of this.
Yeah.
Feels like she could walk anywhere and nobody would recognize her.
Right.
I mean,
meanwhile,
the numbers
massive
this
songs.
woman has done.
Yeah.
But is she a celebrity? She says she doesn't think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's kind of that whole back to, like, I know that my true love is sports and music. And I think that they're like, when they cross and when the paths meet each other is where I'm my happiest.
Well, because you're firing on these you've got two different parts of your, not necessarily two sides of your brain.
So much fun.
You've got like synapses in your brain that like these two different things.
Yeah.
So yeah, your brain's going to love whenever those things start blending together and you start exploring how they connect.
Yeah. The tough part is that I've been trained to think that if you're a sports broadcaster, which is what I've wanted to do since I was 3 years old,
right,
then you can't rap. Or if you're a rapper and you want me to take you serious as a rapper, why are you talking about Trace McSorley?
Right.
Right. So it's like,
and I say,
who cares?
Who the fuck are you to tell me?
Right.
Like, people do all kinds of shit. Like, and I hate to, like, blast him for this. I'm not blasting him, but like, if anything, I'm like singing his praises. But like Joe Rogan, like UFC commentator, I knew him from Fear Factory.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, now he's a UFC commentator. That's wild. Didn't even know he did martial arts, really. No. And so, but this is somebody who was actively still martial arts, actively not, Fear Factor anymore, but UFC broadcaster, also the largest podcast in the world, also comedian. And of all the things that he does, and you can look and be like, bro makes bank. Like, he's not hurting for cash whatsoever. He's still doing he's been, and it's not like he got rich off of doing just one of those things alone. It was because he was growing and becoming better and better in all of the areas where he found that he loves something. Yeah. And so when you're saying that, if I do like music and I like sports, like you can't be taken seriously if you do one or the other. Right. But I'm saying, like, I think that makes you an even better sports pundit.
Yeah,
you've got a sense of humor, which
Right.
is, I don't want to talk to anybody that doesn't have one. First and foremost, I'll be all on the real table.
Same way, brother.
So just like you love the mixed music in sports, you also like to just listen to music. You also like to just watch sports and not be thinking about music, right? So there's
You're
space
escape
for
from
all
one
of those.
another, yeah.
So you can write music that is just for music's sake, that explores something that you're thinking about.
Yep.
And you can watch a
Those
game
songs
and not
never come out.
which is the crime, because I'm sure they're great.
Yeah.
Because the songs that you write about sports or the other things that you're really passionate about are, I think, great. And they're great in fact, because you can see the numbers that follow the trail of people that like it.
Because like,
And those are numbers where you are right now. Those aren't the numbers where you will always be at.
Yeah.
Not to think about the numbers, because get it the fuck
that's
out of your head.
Right.
It's just like reading the comments on like Instagram.
thief
Like,
of
joy. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Man, like someone sent me an Onward State article recently, and it was about an up and coming rapper in the state college music scene.
You remember the name?
Man, I don't remember the name. I wish I did.
Carlos, will you look it up?
Yeah, up and coming rapper. I forget who wrote the article, but somebody sent it to me because the opening line of this article has nothing to do with this guy. It says the state college rap scene has been lacking lately, other than comedy parody rapper Matty Fresh. That's the lead to the story. And that's why my friend sent it to me, because he's like, you got to check this out. Like, they wrote this feature on this rapper, and this is really cool. And this is the lead. And I'm like, what? Like,
wait,
so
repeat the lead again for me.
It's something along, it's not word for word, but paraphrasing. The state college rap scene has never really got off the ground, or never. Right, you can read it word for word. Yeah.
Popular loner, I am Radion, leaving mark on Penn State rap scene.
Yep.
To the everyday music enthusiasts, the state college rap scene may feel non-existent, or maybe only calls attention to comedy sports rapper Matty Fresh.
See what I mean?
Comedy sports rapper.
This is what I am, and you know what? I kind of love that. Like, most people be like, oh, they just drag you in the mud. That's a compliment to me. If you told me when I was a little kid that someone would call me a comedy sports rapper, I'm like, sweet, I'm funny, I'm known for liking sports, and I can rap. Those are three things that when I was a little kid, I would have been like, no, I won't do any of that stuff. I mean, I'll watch sports, but I won't be known for watching sports.
Well, think about if they had written that article about Lil Dicky. It's like comedy dick joke writer Lil Dicky.
And they did. Yeah.
Of course. And so, like, to, it's awesome. You get just like a random name drop.
Sort of like that kind of thing, right? And that's kind of where my worlds intersect. And I've been told, I graduated with a journalism degree, and I've been told in job interviews, like, is there anything we're going to find online about you that we're not going to? And I'm like, oh my God, do I have to delete my catalog?
No.
Exactly. And I never did. And I was struggling with that, because I was like, oh my God, someday when I wanted to do that. And I worked a couple jobs in that. Now I realized that, like, hey, you can have your own sports journalism podcast, and you can be independent and do whatever you want.
Right.
Look at Pat McAfee. And, he's got the background for it and everything, but like, you can truly do sports journalism without having to go traditional local TV,
going to college for journalism.
Whatever. Exactly. So now, like, when I was in those traditional media and they're asking me like, hey, is there anything we're going to find that, like, people are always going through their old tweets and old Facebook statuses when they're in job interviews, and like, is there going to be anything that might come off distasteful? Well, for me, I'm like, yeah, I got some songs that, they're not going to like if they hear them, because it doesn't fit the buttoned up sports journalist sitting on TV. But I struggled with, like, do I have to delete this stuff? Thank God I never did. Yeah. Because I would have regretted that 1,000%.
Right. And are you at those jobs right now?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
And they were the short term,
for whatever,
I had to get through it. Yeah.
I think I had this chip on my shoulder. I don't know why I had this chip on my shoulder, but I did, where I was like, well, if they don't like that I had tattoos or that I wrote this song or that, I was like, it's a place I don't want to work.
Right.
If I have to be somebody that I'm not, that's like literally how you're going to get depressed.
And it's good you had that thought early on, because I think a lot of people still struggle with that. Right.
It wasn't even a good thought. It was just me being a stubborn dickhead.
Since COVID, though, it's becoming very popular that's the way to think. Right?
And I said this on an earlier podcast, like, when the pandemic hit and the world slowed down for everybody, and they all kind of had to operate at my, what's next kind of atmosphere of, like, freelance photography, videography, art, music, creation is not like a steady paycheck.
Absolutely.
And so I was like, oh yeah, it's kind of weird when you don't know where the next paycheck is coming from. I felt like the whole world got put at the same level, and it was a level I was already comfortable at.
Exactly. The leverage shifted too from the employer to the employee over that. And it's still, I mean, the seesaw's still going, and right, like I think about some of those job interviews I had coming right out of college, and I'm like, that wouldn't have even been a conversation. When I was a local sports anchor, I couldn't have a beard or like shoulder length hair. Like I see some of the guys now, like our local meteorologist for WNEP, rocking the full beard, got the nice lettuce coming out. I'm like, let's go. You see local anchors now being able to express themselves.
Right.
I'm like, this is crazy. Just before COVID, 3 or 4 years ago, my news director would have said, you look terrible. Go shave or cut your hair and put some makeup on.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, how cool is that? That now you're able to be a sports anchor and have a beard, something that seems so simple. Like as a sports fan, you want to watch someone who looks like you, not some buttoned up asshole sitting up there self-righteous. Like, so that's why I'm like, man, it's changed so much the last 4 years with everything.
In the event that I have to have like a very imperative surgery done, give me the doctor who's got the job stopper throat tattoo of like an eagle with its wings wrapped up all day. I want that. I'm like, this guy sees I got tattoos too. And I
someone that can make a joke with you before you go into your surgery.
I'm like, odds are he probably wants to keep my tattoos walking around on this earth too. Please operate on my heart. Here we go. We're good. It's a culture thing. Right. We're getting to this point where we're, and it takes people like me who forever ago, whenever I started getting tattoos, were like, look, I want to help break the stigma because I knew so many people with tattoos were some of the best human beings on the planet. Some of them with us still, some of them no longer with us.
I even think that was a thing, like that people used to care.
When I lived in Japan, if I wanted to go to Gold's Gym, I had to put bandages over my tattoos, the few that I had back then. And eventually I was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go buy a long sleeve Under Armour shirt because I'm not taping myself up every day. I want to come in here and work out. And if you went to the onsen, like the hot springs, you had to do the exact same thing. They covered you up. And or you're that guy in the hot tub wearing a Under Armour shirt, leaning against the back like it's totally normal, guys. Everything is fine here.
And dude, like the future of, obviously, like we've talked a lot about music, like the future of sports broadcasting and like sports content is becoming kind of like for the fan, by the fan. Like all of the sports shows that I watch are guys that I, want to hear talk about sports betting and someone who maybe looks like me. And I just, like these old time, like TV anchor type of, I feel like it's not like even linear ESPN now is kind of losing out to like streaming services. And Pat McAfee is coming over to ESPN where he was just on YouTube doing his own independent thing. Even ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, has now recognized that Pat McAfee, who will drop the F-bomb, who has a cast of characters that are all very unconventional guys, and that will have open conversations like this. That's the future of sports broadcasting. And I feel like more and more former athletes who you talk to a ton of on the Blue White Player Show and get to interact with a ton of them being here in State College, like a Tyler Elston. Future as a color commentator. More and more athletes are getting these jobs. Right. And it sucks because it's like, there's a lot of talented people that are coming out of journalism school that are fit for these. Right. But ultimately, if you're a sports fan, you want to hear from someone who played that sport, or do you want to hear from someone who went to college to do television? Right.
Well, I will say this about that. I think that is the exact same thing that happened with marketing and advertising. Yeah. We, as our generation of millennials and Gen Z and younger, what's the next gen, the Alpha Gen or whatever?
I have no clue.
I forget what they're called. Gen A, I guess. Maybe they're back to that. But we've all been advertised to our entire lives. That's why commercials suck. That's why I'm willing to pay an extra $5 a month on Hulu so I don't got to watch ads.
How are commercials still a thing?
Because things got to get paid for. Yeah. And so the advertising stream of like, here's a way to be able to generate revenue. But in that we are so tired of being advertised to, we're so tired of being fed the narrative that is being portrayed. If you're an Aaron Rodgers fan and you're watching ESPN and they've got bad things to say about him, you're like, but what about all these other things? Like, and so there's an intention behind that. Part of that's like, okay, it sparks the discourse. They would love to have people yelling at their TVs at him. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I could do better than this guy. But eventually what happens is we're so tired of being advertised to that we start turning to, the Young Turks is like an alternative media news source. Yep. And regardless of how you feel about them. And so of course sports is going to do that too. If advertising has gone that way, of course, we've always had like product placement in movies and things like that. But now like the integration has to be a lot more seamless.
Right.
Because we're tired of being sold the narrative. It's like, bro, just let me think. Like, I don't want to be fed what you feel about it. I want you to tell me the facts, and I want to be able to discern how I feel about it.
You almost have to experience, and it's like, how many of these things will need to happen? I have personal experience spending $0 on something that was very successful.
Right.
How many of those things have to happen before that's like we go into more traditional, or we get away from more like a block of commercials after every sporting event, or in between, like Super Bowl commercials that still go for millions and millions of dollars. Like,
and it's a racket, dude.
I just think organically, I guess.
Literally, Doritos skated by on Super Bowl commercials by having a contest that they gave an absurd amount of money away to the person who created the best commercial. That was the one they would use. Everybody else is spending millions upon millions on these commercials to get them done.
Yeah.
And the trade-off that they made was, well, at the artist's expense, we'll just have a bunch of people create things for us, and we'll just take the thing we like the most, which is super fucked up. Unless you're the guy who, thinks like, all right, you know what? I think I've actually got the vision that I can pull this off.
More than a million.
And so, like, it's all a racket. It's like, it's a cool kids club, and you're either in it or you're not. And first off, when it comes to commercials, like, it's not like I don't like seeing things that I'm interested in. And so that is kind of the benefit of like your data being tracked, is they can kind of feed you things that you're interested in. But it all comes from this like capitalist mindset of like, okay, you got to buy, you got to purchase, you wanted this, you wanted that, subscribe to this, buy my course, whatever.
It's the same thing with music too. Like we talked about before, like, you telling me listen to a song doesn't really change
how I'm going to feel about it. Yeah, I got to be in a place to receive it.
When you're doing music marketing, and like I've always tried to dream up these big campaigns where it's like I had a song that came out right after Trace. It didn't come out soon enough after Trace, and that's a whole nother conversation about capitalizing on a viral moment. But like I had a song come out, and the whole marketing strategy behind it was it came out on April Fool's Day. So I marketed the song as, here it comes, the James Franklin song. You've all been waiting to hear it. Finally, a song about James. People freaking out, like, no way. And then I add on by saying, and not only that, Trace McSorley is featured on it. He has a verse. I get a video with Trace, him and I going back and forth. Trace saying, yeah, I always wanted to do this. Like, Coach Franklin is my guy. Never rapped before, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Sold it to everybody. Put it out on April Fool's Day. Dropped the link, put the cover art. Everybody thought it was a James Franklin song. You click on it, you hear promo. Song that has nothing to do about James Franklin, Penn State football, or anything sports at all. And to this day, still people DMing me saying, where's the James Franklin song? Didn't get the April Fool's joke. I came out and clarified it, but like, that's what I'm saying. Like marketing strategies that I've had to dream up because I can identify that people don't care if you just say, just listen to this. Yeah, you almost have to have some kind of scheme.
Not even a scheme. You just have to be able to connect with them authentically. Like it's not like people don't enjoy the act of being connected with, but you got to connect with them where they're at.
Right.
And you can't be everywhere. Yeah. So you just have to say, this is how I want to connect with people, and hope that it finds that audience. Do the things that help you get there, but you can't really control it.
And you have to have visual. Like, you just have to have visuals. It can't just be like, oh, just stream this. Like,
yeah. New song out now. Click on Spotify.
The visuals are massive, man. And that's where you become such an asset.
But there's also something to be said for the way we start digesting media now because of the pandemic has shifted insofar as we now are way more accepting of a lower quality bar.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the music video. I mean, I don't want to say it's dead, because to me, it touches on nostalgia. Like, I remember seeing Linkin Park's In the End for the first time. Right. And as we're getting ready to prepare to do our first green screen Unreal Engine music video, I'm like, this is going to be like 16, 17-year-old Johnny experiencing that music video for a bunch of different people. And I'm excited to be a part of the creation side of things where I'm going to put one out. And I've stopped caring how it does just on its own, just by the nature of me getting it done and putting it out. I'm going to do everything I can to get it out there. I just always will. So if I've got new things I've got to try, I will. But this idea now of the 40 to 50 pieces of like short form content and variations of you doing the exact same thing, it is actually easier to market now if you're doing it that way than it is to sit there and go through the process of creating an entire music video. Now, I would say that this is also genre specific. You completely capitalize off of being able to show people something that is a produced kind of thing.
I was going to say, we could not have got on NFL Live by making a TikTok. And like, I totally get
well, that's not true. They've shown TikToks,
but like,
right?
The feature that we got, that producer that I connected with, ran a 45-second clip of that video that we shot, which is damn near half the video.
There's more seconds of being on ESPN than I've ever had.
Television real estate right there is not easy to get.
No.
And I know because I've worked with many television producers and everything. You're always over.
Yeah.
Always over, right? You're never under. And it's like, they're not going to show a TikTok that long. So the real estate that we got from actually doing this, and what you said resonates with me. You can never replace the music video with the short form content. And it's going to come off as another thing where it's like, oh, get off my lawn. But it's like, no, like the music videos, I think are always, like, at least for me.
Well, just like we said earlier with Bandcamp, you just have to be everywhere. So I think the music video is no less of an asset now. You shouldn't
replace it with all the short form. You should add to it.
You should just, if you had to have one or the other, I would say take the short form because it's got more potential for continual posts. It's more of a, it's a lottery. It's a numbers game. So you're playing with more numbers than dumping all of your money into one music video and only having that.
And let me say, like, when I say music video, I think people probably think, oh, you've got to have, like, a prerequisite to a music video, you've got to have the A-roll of, like, the artist performing the track. When I think of music video, I think a more visual is probably a better term for it now.
Or a narrative.
The Trace McSorley video is a highlight montage of him. Do I consider it a music video? Hell yeah.
Right.
It's a video that syncs up with the music, and no, I'm not in it. But, like, it's a visual, and it's more than 15 seconds.
Well,
right.
It's a video that only music. It's not you're talking. There's no, like, announcers or anything like that under it. It's like it's just the music and the video. It is a music video, literally by definition. Right. But, yeah, I think if anything now you need to have the music video and the short form content. And then the thing that has hung me up is I'm like it's almost like I'm becoming claustrophobic because I'm being surrounded by, think about if orbs this big were floating around behind me and I have to have 40 to 60 of them to do it. I have to think of what each one of those things is. And in my brain, I think, oh, well, they all have to be these different things, but really they could be 10 things with 4 variations of each of those. And you're at the 40 mark already, you know?
So true, yeah.
So so far as now the short form is kind of taken over, it's nice because that clever part of your brain that was able to get stuff on ESPN and do the things that you did, that brain absolutely is like critical now because it's almost sort of like a nuanced way of thinking about things that if you can find a way to execute that in the short form content translates to you being able to capitalize on it in the back end of releasing it.
And I think my major problem is, and it's always been this way with me for all social media, and now even with because I've embraced TikTok. I'm not active on it right now, but again, going back to like other times in your life where maybe you weren't as comfortable and just a mass of content came from that. Like I made a lot of TikTok videos in that time and kind of embraced and tried to find my fans. Like I've always kind of separated my personal life where social media, I'll be honest, is a marketing and promotional tool for me. I'm going to use it to market and promote my music, my interest in sports, and things that relate to my fans. What I'm not going to do is post my family. What I'm not going to do is tell people about my relationships and post pictures at my friend's wedding. And I've always kind of kept those two separate. And I don't knock anybody who
does all.
Yeah, exactly. I would never. Like that's what it's for, right? Social media.
Right.
But it's not me. And I wonder if that hurts me because I know people want to see that. I know people want to kind of get a peek into your personal life. It fascinates us, right? And especially when you're an artist, like we sit here and talk about Lil Dicky. Wow, was that fascinating to get a peek into his personal life through the show. And, maybe that's the right way to do it instead of just doing it on social media is really doing it how
put it under a lens where you get to choose what people get to see about the story of you upcoming. Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag, right? Because we are in this era where people want to be able to see everything more transparently because they can feel more connected that way. But like you said, like NF doesn't even have a TikTok and it spreads because the message is there. The authenticity is there. I don't want to be selling
people something like, hey, look at me. I'm only on here to sell you my music. Like it's not. I want to connect with fans, but I also have no interest in showing you what's going on in my personal life. And maybe that's a flaw, but it'll always kind of be that way for me. And I don't want the two to change.
So I don't know anybody that I've ever followed because they were marketed to me.
Yeah.
Is how and I'm not everybody, so that doesn't count. Like obviously we do like Spotify conversion ads for Facebook to be able to get people that are interested in some things that we think pertain to what this track is about to check us out. That's just one asset of how we do marketing. It's not all of it. It's not like the only thing we do, but it's an important part of it. But I look at it much like I look at touring. Like if you're a musician and you want to go tour, just to take it back to the beginning when we were talking about it, you can't tour to make fans. You're going to be going to a bunch of places saying, come to my show and see me. And I hope you like me. You might like me. You don't know if you can't tell people that. No. So you can't, just by the nature of it, man, even if you got an opening slot for Hoodie and you're opening to 2,000 people a night, you'll gain some traction by putting on a good show and having some, there's some crossover there, right? Like that helps.
Yeah.
But what would be better? The little amount that you're going to make on tour for your daily, say it's a 30-month tour. There's a monetary amount that ends up at the end of that tour after expenses and everything that gets you, an amount to take home. Or would you make more money off of being able to be home and have access to the resources you have to be able to create and write something new and put it out to the world? You can't play to 2,000 people every night for the rest of your life, but you can get that kind of attention by repetition and repeating. So I just feel like you can't tour to make fans. You have to tour to your fans.
Right. And it's like,
so social media, I look at social media the same way. You can't get people. I don't want people to follow me because I'm like, please follow me. You'll if you like music, you'll like me or whatever. I'm like, I want, my numbers will go up when people, they certainly started once I started doing the podcast. It's like that's done really well. The YouTube Shorts has been phenomenal. Right. And like, it's not like I'm trying to sell it. I'm just like, it's people that are subscribing that are finding me and they like it. So that's who I want. That's my actual audience. And so, I mean, and it's hard for me to talk about people like their numbers, right? Because like, that's not how I view it. I enjoy having the conversations with anybody. This conversation right here,
one person that would listen to this makes it all worth it.
Bro, I can't even tell you. I've had this exact conversation with hundreds of people.
Right.
And I enjoy having it because I'm passionate about it. I think when you see the nuances and you're actually going through the thick of it, and you're literally like, we're going to war together, dude. Like, we're not against each other. We're against, I guess, dying and everything meaning nothing. But in 100 years, spoiler alert, that's where we're going to be anyway. So
ever die, man.
But eventually there's heat death of the universe, and it shrinks, and then nothing. But while we're here, dude, you have to reach out, you have to express. And so to me, everybody who's doing that, I gas everyone the fuck up. Like my buddy, Cloudy Skies, that played the track for my bass player, Nick, he gets kind of teary eyed when he's like, man, that makes me feel so good that you actually like listen to that part. And you said you liked it. You picked out a nuanced thing that was an attention to detail that I would hope you would get, but I can't expect everybody to get.
You are the most analytical person I've ever met, and you can express through your vocabulary, which is very strong, what you're feeling, and not everybody has that. And it's funny you bring up, just to touch on kind of something you said before with Hoodie, and like opening up and how that feels. Obviously, you guys have opened up a million times. Hoodie had like a party with your friends tour. This was back in.
Oh yeah, I remember when this tour was going on.
And he was in the process of selecting openers. He ended up selecting, and this has always been a thing with Hoodie Allen. Some of the artists that have opened for him have gone massive, like a Mod Sun, a Kyle.
Well, Mod Sun was the drummer for a band called Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, and then we actually did Warped Tour with him. I think he was on the 2012 year, 2011.
Yeah.
But like, he was always. He actually, this is like wild throwback, but he stayed at my house in Belfont whenever I lived there, like forever ago, because I put them up whenever they played the Crowbar, and I went and I saw them. Yeah. And so then they came back and they crashed at my place for the night. I gave them a place to sleep because my place back then was right next to Interstate 80, which gets you wherever you want to go, highway as fast as you can. And in the van and trailer, you need that. Yeah. But and then reconnecting with them later on Warped Tour. I wish I never grabbed his number. I wish I had. Yeah. But I'm glad to see how well he's doing. Like he's got a lot of success coming his way. And honestly, I mean, he slept in a fucking sleeping bag, played I think Xbox or whatever it was in my living room. In a house of a stranger, hoping for the hospitality that would just get him to the next date while he was building his dreams. And that is a person that, if anybody deserves stuff. So I'm really happy to see that he's going in the direction that he is.
Engaged to Avril Lavigne. That they didn't get married, but
yeah, who's gonna say he's not winning?
Wow. Yeah, but anyway, like going back to that, like Black Bear's another one opened up for Hoodie. Like all these artists, I think he was in the process of selecting his openers for Party with Your Friends tour, and he left it open. He was like, like kind of audition video, send me your video. Yeah. And to me, it was like if you're opening, let me ask you this: if you're opening for a rapper like that, like a Hoodie Allen, do you like do something goofy? Like what our idea was, we're going to come out on stage with the rock band drums and we're just going to have like pool noodles and like all this goofy shit so that people, because people aren't there for our music, so that people remember me and say, oh yeah, that was the asshole with the fucking rock band drums dicking around on stage. Like the one song was good. Like, do you have to use those 15 minutes that you get to just do something so different and so weird that people will remember you, not for the music, but for the act? Because they don't care about your music? Like, dude, if it's tough, man, as an opener, like if you're performing and they're not there to see you.
So that lends into my other point, right? Like if you get a group of people, there's so many factors that just go into what you just said. Yeah. So let's break it down. If I go and I see an opener, if I go to any show, I can't enjoy a show at all anymore. I don't know when the last time I went to a show and didn't have fucking homework to do whenever I got home. But like, I chose that, so like, fuck me, right? But the reality is, I look at it like I enjoy knowing as an art from the artist perspective. You know, they're on the proving grounds right now. Yeah. So you do have something to prove, but your music ultimately should speak for itself. On Warped Tour, there was the band that's going back out on tour again, actually, and I'm super stoked about this. And I think they're going out with Head Automatica. The group is called Foxy Shazam. And like their lead singer used to like light up a pack of cigarettes and he'd be like, I need a cigarette. And then just cigarettes coming at you. Yeah. But like their music was good too. Right. And so the gimmick, and I don't think they ever made they never blew up in a way that I wish they would have, because the first time I saw them, they were opening a show for a band called Census Fail at the Croc Rock in Allentown. Oh, ultimate throwback.
Ever hear of Spose? I saw Spose there. He's an old rapper, but I've been to that venue a few times.
But I go in there. I missed them. They were opening. I caught them in their last song as I'm walking in to see the band that I want to see, and it may have been The Used, actually. It may not have been Census Fail. But so as we walk in, the lead singer is just like upside down from the rafters, just like singing and screaming. I was like, whoa. Right. And their keyboardist, Sky, he's like stepping on his keyboard and like hammering on it, and he stands up on it. Like they engage the crowd. So that is what matters. If you're an opener, that fires you up. You need to engage the crowd. Right. You can't, when nobody knows your songs, you have to give them reason to want to be into your song. Exactly. And so I think as the opener,
and it can't be just stand up and clap.
Yeah.
I've seen some bad openers. Like, and I respect music. One of my favorite artists, Kid Quill, has a song that you'll love called The Opener, about this. And it's just like kind of how you told me, hey, make a song about how, you know, whatever, like you should make a song about what you think is like some of your biggest, like your biggest back and forths. But like he made a song about being an opener. And it's like, I'm the opener. No one came to see me singing all my songs and nobody knows them. You know, I'm at the back trying to sell a CD, trying to sell merch. And it's like, what are you going to do? And that's why I was like, man, if I ever landed one of these gigs, first of all, these are pay to play. So at the ones that the opportunities I've been presented, the promoter is like, yeah, you got to sell like 30 tickets. And if you do, you'll break even. If you sell more, you'll make some money. If you don't sell 30 tickets, you're going to pay to play.
So,
so what do I have to do in these 15 minutes to go home knowing that these people remembered me? And I was like 18, 19 years old thinking, okay, if I do land this gig, I'm going to go absolutely insane. Right. And just so they remember me and are like, that guy was a whack job. But 10 years later, I remember him because he opened up for Hoodie. And I never got the opportunity to do it because the artists that he picked to go on tour were some of the best and even out succeeded him eventually. But like, man, I always wonder from your standpoint, like how you guys treat a show. Do you open a show the same you would if it was a headliner? Or do you try to do things differently to engage the crowd?
I think to me, I look at every show as like an isolated event, and I try to like we have tracks and in-ears and a lot of stuff going on the actual production side of things. And so for me, I think it's just most important to be tight. I think I used to tour manage and do merch for this band, Our Last Night. Yeah. And the first time I met them, I was out on a tour with a different band, TMing and doing merch for them. And I saw them every day for like 2 weeks. And the singer, the lead screamer, Trevor, was like 14 at the time. And I was like, that's wild already. That's wild. But what I really noticed about them was that every night they sounded so good. They were just locked in. Yeah. Matt and Colin were the guitar players at the time. And Matt's like the songwriter and singer. they were just always tight. Tim, their drummer, one of the best drummers in the world, as far as I'm concerned. He's really good. He's so much fun to watch. But as a unit, cohesively, they were tight. And so what sold was they were already, the music was catchy as hell to me.
Got a 14-year-old lead singer. That's wild.
And he's young and he sounds pissed.
Oh, like dude, the young kids. I mean, think about Hanson back in it's always going to be insane with when you have young kids doing stuff like that.
So to me, what I'm looking for is I want us to be tight.
Yeah.
Because if you're tight, then hopefully your music is catchy enough that they're gonna be able to observe it and want to watch it more. But you can't bank on them wanting to do it if your song sucks. And you have to be able to be honest. You have to be able to honestly digest whether or not music you've written sucks, which is like you're already battling that demon all the time anyway. So whenever you release something and it flops, you have to consider at some point that might be a variable. And that's why you need to stick and move. You need to drop this song and do what you got to do to push it.
Right.
But don't get so hung up on trying to make that your baby that you don't move on. You got to kill your babies sometime.
And I've seen openers, dude, who do like 3 songs to jack up the crowd that aren't theirs. Like just, I wouldn't even call them covers. Just like, I'm going to play this to get people hype. And then maybe one original.
Right.
Just because they were so scared to go out there for 15 minutes and do 4 or 5 songs that people wouldn't know the words to,
I think a gimmick helps. So many different things help. But I just ultimately think that like it's very hard. And it's a numbers game also, right? So like if you're opening a show for 500 people, the numbers are even smaller now. So I just try to, one of the metrics we use for merch when we're selling merch at a show is we try to do at least $1 a head. So it doesn't matter if only 50 people show. If I can do $50 in merch, then that's not bad for it's a low bar.
Yeah.
But good. That's a bar I should be able to meet.
Yeah.
Always every show we've ever played.
The great Aaron Rodgers once said, "Expect nothing and be grateful for everything." I'm sure he wasn't the first one to say that, but I heard him say it once. That's how I am. I don't
just say that you love him, dude.
Right. Well, I hope the Jets win a Super Bowl. That's what I will say.
Wouldn't you shit? Gary Vee would be excited. That's his team. He's that's the team he backs more than anything. And if Aaron Rodgers goes there and gives it to him,
I will be rooting for Aaron. I have no hard feelings against him. Again, long story short, he was going to retire a Green Bay Packer. Goes in the darkness. You probably heard about the ayahuasca. He wasn't on ayahuasca this time. Goes in the darkness for 4 nights and says, okay, 2 nights I'm going to contemplate retirement. No technology, in the darkness by himself, just getting meals passed through a little mail slit to him. I'm going to go 2 nights in the darkness, not even think about playing. I'm just going to retire in my mind. Next 2 nights I'm going to flip and think about what it would be like to come back and play. Right? So he does that. He comes out. He's like, I'm done. I'm retiring. Well, it turns out,
he's addicted.
The Packers were shopping him while he was in the darkness, trying to take advantage of the fact that he already told them he would retire, a Green Bay Packer.
Right.
So he's got people in his circle texting him as he comes out of the darkness and checks his phone for the first time. Hey, like they're going behind your back, man. Like they're trying to trade you. He's like, I was going to retire. Now you're definitely going to trade me, and I'm going to the fucking Jets.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only place I'm going to go, and I'm taking half the roster with me.
Well, so I look at his story and the overarching, like, long-term narrative. How sick would it be if he gets that Jets Super Bowl, which is already, like, as an ask,
it'll be bittersweet,
massive of the universe.
Yeah.
But if he does it, that is a fucking comeback story through and through. At the end of the day, you got to get your reps in. He's got them, but he's addicted. He has done this his whole life, and it's very hard to turn that off.
Yeah,
it's just like same for like mixed martial artists. Like you just get to a point where you have to hang it up, and it almost takes you being at the place where you have to hang it up to get there.
And you see Brady the relationships failing. Tom Brady and Giselle done. Aaron Rodgers broke off his engagement because he came back to the game, and she didn't want him to, and she thought he was going to retire, like he said many times he would. And
that's not a knock on how the women feel, because like they're also going through
I totally get
he could come back a little more concussed than I remember when he left for and during COVID it was the bubble, so like you're not in contact with your family as much. You're literally going 13 weeks, 14 weeks or whatever outside of that.
Right.
So I mean, I get the struggle on all points. We're all, like I said, everybody's got that boulder they're carrying.
Yeah.
So,
but can you imagine coming out of the darkness? I mean, he was talking about you're in there for the first couple hours. You have to like kind of go in there beforehand and find out where you're going to take a piss, because like you can't see anything. So like the stuff that he talked about when he came out of the darkness, like how do you wipe? Like shit like that. Bro, it's like,
I can find my ass without looking at it, dude. I don't need a mirror to be able to.
I don't know if you necessarily have a problem finding your ass. I think it's some of the other things that are associated with wiping and going to the bathroom. That
maybe he had a bidet. Maybe that was it. Maybe he had a bidet. And he didn't have to worry about it.
being in there, and he said he did lose his mind for a short period, and like you really stress out, but like,
yeah, sensory deprivation is going to do that to you.
Coming out of there and being like, yo, I spent 2 full nights in my life contemplating coming back and playing, and I felt the pain, and I felt the concussions, and I thought about my family and other things in my life that need more attention. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'm done. And then still having the competitive drive and the alpha male in you to say, fuck all of that. I'm going back and I'm playing for the Jets because the Packers tried to screw me out of this. Well, and he admitted it on Pat McAfee. Like, he said all this basically, yeah, people in my circle said they were trying to trade me, and I can't believe that after 17 years in this organization that they tried to do that.
Well, so that's a pretty unique instance of that story taking place. But the reality is, here's what was happening. He had 2 choices to make. Yep. And both of them are choices. The blessing he got was he came out and the choice was made for him.
Yeah.
And so in doing that, I think it's awesome that he was able to pivot and say, okay, well, now I know necessity is the mother of invention. When they pitch that to you, you're like, oh, well, now I'm going to play. And guess what else I'm going to do? That little chip on your shoulder, that's going to be, listen, his seasons are his songwriting. Right. So this next season for him is going to be a good record. So you got to look at it like he's going to come out swinging.
He could win a Super Bowl. Like, Matt Stafford spent his whole career at the Detroit Lions, never made the playoffs. It was miserable. People blamed it on him. He tried to tell everybody it's not me, it's the organization. Goes to the LA Rams, wins a Super Bowl right away because they gave him the right pieces. This Jets roster is loaded, and Aaron's in a great situation to win a Super Bowl.
I don't often dive into sports talk, this banter, but I will say I was so grateful for Saquon going to the Giants.
Oh man, what a situation that is right now.
Right. And so now, but the thing that really bugged me was that they couldn't give him an O-line. Right. They could let him do the damage he can do.
Pay the man.
Yeah.
He's too old. He's 26, Johnny. Come on. He's in a wheelchair. He's washed. 26 years old for a running back in the NFL. I mean, you might as well be on AARP by now.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, I'm going to make it in music. I'm going to make it doing a podcast.
It's amazing how sports age and real age are so different, right?
Well, actually, Carlos and I were just talking earlier today, and his new fucking joke is making old jokes at me. And I laughed. I was like, I remember what I was saying. I was like, oh yeah, my shoulders are hurting because of carrying this 20-pound gimbal around earlier doing this shoot. And he was like, yeah, you're just teeing me up for so many jokes right now. And I was like, just curiosity me was like what? Yeah. And he was like, you're just old, dude. And I was like, it doesn't cut because it's like, dude, it doesn't change the fact that this thing in here is not old. It is still at best 27 and at its worst 14.
Yeah, my producer for Spring Ball Boulevard, his name's Chris Zook. He's been great in producing our podcast, and he's older than me. He's got about a decade on me, and I always he would tell stories about, I used to play Little League Baseball, and this is how this relates to the story you're telling. I'd be like, wow, Little League Baseball, that must have been 1953. So I get how it is to go back and forth. I still feel young. People say Saquon's old at 26.
Which is absurd.
The guy's in his prime.
And not only is he in his prime, he is I don't think he's ever been more focused. And I always, every time I do any sort of research on him, I'm like, I always get that impression. I'm like, never been more focused in his life. And every time I check in, I'm like, wow, it's pretty crazy because I said that 2 years ago.
I wish I would have met you when I was back in 2016.
Why?
It would have been so cool to see that time when the team was winning the Big Ten championship and all that. And my first songs were coming out. I feel like we met so late in my journey. And if I would have known you early on, you would have been able to feed me so much shit that I should have known, man.
Well, I didn't start working for Penn State or for WPSU at Penn State until 2017.
Regardless, just you being on the circuit, man, and just coming up and just understanding how all that works, man. I wish I met you a lot earlier, dude.
Well, in the same year, 2017, that I started working for WPSU, I started working and doing obligatory. I kind of came on in just a tertiary, third-party role. I'm going to
that's when I was in school.
I'm going to do these things. I'm going to help out with production.
Right.
And I wasn't in control of it. I was just helping out with it. But within a year or two, they were giving me the reins because they were like, okay, you seem to know what you're doing.
Not a thing anymore, is it?
And what?
Is WPSU still a thing?
Yeah, there's still a thing. Actually, they just asked me if I want to reapply. They furloughed me during the pandemic, and then
I heard that a lot of people didn't.
And then 2 years later, they just randomly fired me. So I'm like, now I got to pay for my Adobe Premiere subscription. So I'm thinking about just taking up a 5-hour a week part-time position just to make a little extra cash and not have to pay for Premiere.
Man.
Right. It breaks your heart.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I guess I'm no
I
good
didn't
to you
realize
anymore.
how much I needed Premiere.
Yeah, you only got like $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 out of me. I can't get a fucking free subscription to some editing software for the rest of my life.
How
Like,
much does it run?
it's like 50 a month, maybe. It's nothing terrible. I don't even know.
God,
Honestly, I don't know.
this
I don't know because it's so much ingrained into every other aspect of my life. I have to have it. So I'm like,
I absolutely have to have it, and I'm not a videographer editor. I have to have it. You know, I edit TikTok videos in Premiere. How stupid is that? I don't even know how to edit a video in the platform, so I export it to Premiere and edit it in there.
oh, I'm definitely guilty of that
No,
too.
they hate that, don't they?
Yeah, they want you to do
The
it in that.
videos that I don't edit in there get viewed less. I noticed that.
Oh yeah, certainly.
That
Turns
sucks.
out this cell phone is not a fucking computer and it doesn't have all the comfortable linear editing
Why would
controls
they
that I
punish
need
you
to,
for doing that?
because they're
crazy.
dickheads.
That's crazy.
But so I wanted to say, like, I wanted to kind of set you up with some people that I think that you should do some collaborative stuff that takes you,
Hell yeah.
just take a verse on a song that's not,
Hell yeah.
a sports song and
Yeah.
see what you come up with, especially if you hear the other verses first.
I
And it
love
gives
rhyming,
you,
dude. I'm like you. I love poetry. And remember, I grew up on Eminem rhyming sentences. There's
Right.
nothing cooler than hearing Eminem rhyme an entire sentence. And you're like, oh, these guys are out here just rhyming every third, fourth word. No.
Right.
This sentence rhymed. Everything. The subject, the predicate, the whole thing, the punctuation. It rhymed in each line. And like that amazed me how there were enough words in the dictionary to rhyme. And I was fascinated by it. And I love that part of songwriting, kind of like you said, trying to fit a word in and how will this fit with the melody and what is the perfect word, right? I love it. I'm the same way, man.
I mean, language is an art.
Yeah.
So the fact that we've learned how to like wrestle it and finesse it into
And
like
that feeling when you get that word,
structures,
right? It's like,
yeah.
oh man, that's gonna slap. Like,
yeah,
it's a great feeling.
Yes. I can't wait to play Spitfire.
because you have
for
the
it.
wrong word, and you're like, I can't be that.
Oh yeah.
It's a filler word, and
It's
you
a
know,
game, dude. Like
you hate having fillers. I'm sure. Like you never want to have like, oh, I just have to finish the song. Let me just fill it. It always has to be worth it.
I've never done a song that way. Like,
Yeah.
and so that's the benefit to me going to a studio is that
Yeah.
by the time I get to a studio that I'm going to and I'm paying for,
Mhm.
I've already got everything written the way I
Of
want
course,
it to be
you-
written.
You should, yeah.
But like, I don't love like it's like it'll take longer because I have all the control of when I
Yeah.
decide to sit down and record on my own. But when you get that line, like I listen to it. Carlos has kind of been documenting some behind the scenes at Happy Valley Song Lab,
Yeah.
and as I go through and work through a song with him,
That's
I'm
sick.
like, we're getting the melodies, and then I'm working on the lyrics, and I wrote some stuff after sitting on it.
This is the stuff that pops off short form right now.
What?
The creation of a song.
Well, yeah, and
Seen a
so
lot of that.
so we've had this talk. Should we actually even finish writing a whole bunch of songs, or should we generate and make like
A whole
30
series
to
of
40
that.
pieces of
Yeah.
content around a song demo or a chorus part or
I think
something
try
we
it,
start and see?
definitely. Yeah.
Yes and no, because fuck you. I don't want to write a part of a song and then not finish it. I think in complete thoughts if
Right.
I'm blessed with the day where I've been hydrated and my ADD isn't
course.
killing me. But I don't want to exercise this this fragment of a part of a thought because I think like to me that's if you're doing the marketing tool side of
Yeah.
it. I don't know. On the flip side, I think like, maybe people will appreciate there might be an artist that literally only does 30-second hooks.
Right.
And like I really fuck with Russ, and he most of his songs are like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Of course.
But if what you pack in there is memorable and real and
Can I
visceral
ask
and
you that,
connects
by
with
the
you,
way, this thought I've had. Are artists doing these minute 30 songs so that you play it again? And
of
get
course,
paid? Okay.
if it's catchy
I
as
was
hell,
hoping that
you get
somebody
paid
else-
after 30 seconds.
Yeah,
so
but
if
I'm
you
like,
can get
I'm
it
not
done,
crazy. Am I like? There's a reason behind it.
I don't necessarily think that it's intentional, but
Right.
it can be a part of your formula to be
Totally
like,
makes sense.
hey, this song's going to do
Because
really
I'm
well.
listening again if I love it.
Right,
I'm like, damn, I didn't get enough.
right. Best case scenario, you wrote something super catchy. It's
Right.
2 minutes long, and I wanted to hear it 5
And
times
it does.
anyway.
It pisses me off when the song ends. So I'm like kind of mad at the artist for not giving me more, but then I'm gonna listen to it again.
right.
They win anyway.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, you're playing with house money, bro. It's
Yeah.
not you're losing it. That's what's
yeah,
happening.
man, for sure.
But it would be helpful if fucking streaming paid artists enough in the first
Yeah.
place. That's the thing that kills me is that like you can put up, substantial numbers
Right.
and it's like not enough to like there's no record I've ever listened to the number of times it takes to pay an artist what
Yeah.
that CD was worth. And they haven't come
Yeah.
up with anything comparable to that. To be fair, part of that industry developed because people were just stealing music. They're like, I'm not buying the
Yeah.
CD. I'm not ripping this to my computer
Right,
into
it's a whole
iTunes
culture.
to upload it to my iTunes. Like I need to have access to it. So I understand that the band the side of it doesn't necessarily generate enough revenue to be paying artists what the full cost of a CD would be if they got through it. Like
What is a gold record now? Like I heard it was like 75 million streams.
Los, you want to look that up?
Yeah, because I know it's what they do. Like 150 streams is one physical sale now. So we had to get a certain amount of units.
Wow, that's dog shit.
150. I know that much. 150 streams is like one physical.
Then 150 streams should be $5. Yeah. Give me $5. I believe in the proof of concept of the $5 CD. Yeah. I don't care if it's 13 tracks, 42 tracks, or 5
on the streets of New York City.
For sure, I've sold them. Like I get it. That was most of Warped Tour 2010. Like, yeah. What do you want? What do you want? Not bootleg CDs. Yeah.
No, these were originals. Yeah. Just a guy who had an interesting way to do it, but it's.
You know what's fucked up? I support art and pretty much have my whole life because I enjoy it. Yeah. And I remember a dude sold me a CD. He played some stuff on a headset, and he was like, "Yo, check. This is my CD. It's $5. It's only or $10. I think it was what it was. Yeah. I paid it for him. Got home. Blank fucking CD. I was like, this motherfucker.
Funny story. So when I was 18 and Skook State of Mind came out, I had no idea what I was doing, marketing. So I was like, here's a good idea. Let's print a t-shirt and burn a CD. Because remember, this is Empire State of Mind. So it's not going, it's a remix. So it's not going on Spotify. You know, I didn't want to go through like, I know you guys do like the cover song licenses, and I asked you about that before.
Yeah, mechanical licenses.
This isn't a cover song. I wasn't covering Empire State of Mind. So like, I had to keep it on Bandcamp where it was like, hey, donate to me or else you could have it for free.
Right.
Well, I'm like, all right, let's, it's local. Let's burn some CDs. Let's go around. Oh, you can meet Matty Fresh. That's the experience you're buying, right? So you're close enough to where I will drive to your house. I will meet you. You'll get your CD and a picture. It was like, do this, $20. I mean, I was young. So we did enough of these in one town that I tried to burn these, and I signed every CD. We must have did 500 of these. And of course, you're trying to burn 500 CDs on an old piece of shit HP laptop. You wouldn't believe the messages I got. And I felt so bad. People were like, hey, I popped this in. Nothing.
Right. And hey, you forgot to finalize your CD.
So you're telling this story, and I'm like, I always wanted, like, if there was ever a documentary about me one day or something, that is the craziest thing to me. That I sold.
You need to find like at least 5 people that bought that CD that it didn't work for them. Now you've actually given me a new frame of thought. How
much of a fraud I probably looked like.
Well, you made me think about this in a different way.
I showed up at their house.
Maybe this guy just didn't have even an HP to burn it from. And it was, like a really old Dell or something. And he was just not acclimated to doing it. So maybe it was an accident.
I've been there. I've done that. And yeah, man, like it's crazy. Cause like with the Spotify streaming too. You just never know, because like in rap, you're going to lease a lot of beats, and sometimes you don't always have the exclusive rights to everything, and you have to work with producers, and they don't want to give you exclusive rights. And, I try to produce my own stuff sometimes, but it's not the quality I want. And it's like so much easier to find someone who could do it better than me than learn it. Right. So it's like, I'm in situations where when I was younger, I have leased beats and things that I don't have exclusive rights to, and navigating all that is tough, because it's like, once you become big enough of a fish to fry, everyone's going to come around and try to get the bag. And I was lucky enough when Trace blew up to be like in a situation where I wasn't threatened or anything, because all my, I had to get all my shit in order, but it is. And like we were behind, like that song wasn't on Spotify. It wasn't on Apple Music. So I'm like full court press when it blew up to try to get everything done right, make sure the copyright's renewed, all that shit.
Right.
And it's like when you have like Spotify, man, that song could go from 5 million to 100 million in one night. And it's like, are you ready? Are you totally prepared for that?
Yeah.
Could anybody possibly ever be totally prepared for that?
So can I ask, like, as a business model, because you have to approach it from this perspective where like you're paying for, the beat. How do you do it? Do you license beats anymore, or do you?
Now I have producers, but like back then it was more of like, if send me beats, I have 50 of them, I'll listen through them.
Right. So, but do you buy the beats off of the producer and like as a song, like as a whole thing?
Usually I'll work with the producer and it's a split.
Yeah. So that was my point.
That's how I grew up. Right. Before it was just like, oh no, I'll pay for it.
Right.
I learned a lot.
You realize, well, here's two things, right? Like you can't benefit a producer on a split if you don't sell shit. Exactly. So it's like, there's like this barrier to entry. At some point, you're gonna have to pay just to get a few under your belt.
Get the guys who you trust. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be big if people buy what you're selling, and if you can sell to them because of who you authentically and genuinely are, then other people are going to too. And all you have to do is sell the producer who says like, I believe in this guy's project.
And one of the first records I did that on was Trace, because I was putting, I had songs in 2014, 15, 16. That came out in 2018 when I learned a lot more through the Saquon song, having a little success about the industry. And I was like, yeah, totally. This should be a split. right?
Right.
2 years later, the producer cashes the check because it blows up.
Right.
And he's texting me like, bro, this is insane. Are you seeing this? I'm like, absolutely, dude.
But I know
Let's
people that
go.
are afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, I don't want to do, like, from the both sides.
I was happy for him. I was like, yo, this is what I sold to you when I was like, please split with me. Don't make me buy exclusive rights.
Yeah.
To this,
And what
right?
sucks is there's this litany of artists out there that are like, I don't want to give away, or I just had I'm a part of a producer's thread that I have a bunch of friends that are producers that I've worked with or are friends of mine that are on that thread. And somebody did he did a track for an artist and he really likes it. And he's the artist, the dumbass artist is like, oh, well, if I sign a record deal, like I just want to have 100% of this. And like, can I just buy it off of you for this low price that he agreed? Yeah, for sure. Just like thinking that you're like bigger than you are way before you're ready to even have that conversation.
Read something in a book somewhere.
Meanwhile, I mean, but you got to appreciate that's a part of his own journey. He wants to shoot himself in the foot right now. So you just let him do that and bleed out a little bit. And then when he's like, oh, I don't want to bleed anymore. It's like, I think I've learned my lesson. I'm going to turn around and figure out a way that I can work with this guy. And so the producer was like, what should I do? Like, we agreed to a 50-50 split and now he wants to like buy me out for the song. And I put more time in this because I thought I had a 50-50 split.
Right.
So,
and you got to trust your producers because if you're on BeatStars shopping beats, you don't know what's cleared.
No, not at all.
What's cleared, man.
Yeah. You could pay for something and then get to it gets flagged on Spotify or whatever. And then you're like, cool, now what do I do?
Yeah. That's ultimate disaster. And like, I get it. Like, like Lil Nas had it with Old Town Road where like that shit took off and then he didn't have, the producer wasn't compensated.
It's not the first instance of that happening. That happens. Right. A lot of artists have had that happen.
Nobody cares until you're a big enough fish to fry, right? Like it seems like,
and that's why people do it.
Artists that would rather ask for forgiveness rather than permission, right?
Certainly. And at a certain point, you almost have to.
Who's stopping you, right?
Right. And so there's nothing wrong with that recipe either because the reality is like, sometimes you do just need to be like, hey, I'm not big enough that anybody's even going to notice this. Obviously with like AI and like software flagging going on, it's now a little bit more difficult, but it should be because it's only an industry of artists ripping off other artists and you don't want that either.
Exactly. So
it's not sustainable. But the reality is like, you just need to respect everybody's part of the art. Of course. Like we had a producer, Jordan, we work with, and he does all of like our mixing and mastering for our covers. And he was like, hey man, I got to up my rates. Like, I just wanted to let you know. But immediately I think his worry from the producer standpoint is he's like, oh, I don't want to ask him for more money. I feel bad asking him.
It's a dilemma.
But I'm like, dude, you are worth it. You spend, you're not only you're worth it, but you're a critical part of our process now.
Because I would love nothing more that if, I don't know, if Trace McSorley wins a Super Bowl one day and this thing goes absolutely bonkers, I'm taking my producer with me, man. Like that's a moment that we live for. It's like an episode of fucking Entourage.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want. We want that, like to be there together. And I'm not so concerned about my portion of it that I'm not willing to say, yeah, dude, you were in the dorm room with me. Like we birthed this shit together, man.
For sure. We need to do either a short docu-series where we put different genred artists in one place where they all are kind of on their, grind working on their shit. And then having these like literally a artist version of Entourage.
I love the show, man.
And then see what, I mean, you could literally probably, not that you should, but you could totally copy most of the premises and move them over into this new industry of not,
People love to watch that kind of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Geniuses at work but it's not that like Entourage isn't as successful as it is because it's a Hollywood story. It's because the guys are loyal, right? To see people that are loyal to each other and aren't double crossing each other, like happens so much in this industry. To see people who are loyal and are more concerned about the bond than they are about the split and the money. That's what's special.
Well,
music.
That's what it should be. Because at the end of the day, like everybody chasing and trying to clutch their fucking pearls, nobody's going to get anywhere that way. Nope. You can, but you're the anomaly then. You're the exception, not the rule. Yep. And so insofar as you have to be able to support your team that's going along with you, you got to find ways that basically make that worthwhile to everybody in your camp. And that's what it is. You've got to camp. Imagine you're camping with all the people that you're doing this song with. Right. Like you don't want, one of your, hey, you got to shit in the river down there where the bears are, but you can come over here where we drug a latrine and you're good to go. It's like everybody's got to be treated with the same level of respect and because they're all on their own artist journey too. Because you know what's crazy to me? Working with the interns from Happy Valley Song Lab, there are some people that they're like, oh, I want to be a manager. I'm like, there's a place for everybody. Everybody's got the thing that they want to do. And that artist manager has his own artistry and his own artist journey that he's on, whether
Andrew
he thinks or she.
Dave. I love that scene when he becomes a manager. It's like, he's like, what do you mean you're going to be my manager? He's like, I'm quitting my job. I'm going to be your manager. He's like, don't quit your job.
Right. But you know what? Sometimes that trial by fire pushes you to realize like, hey, now I've got people that are relying on me to provide for me. Did you watch Tom Segura's new Netflix special?
Did not get a chance to yet.
Please watch it. Yeah. And then immediately after watching it, watch the 30-minute documentary, behind the scenes documentary that he did for that special.
Yeah, he just went on Pat McAfee to promote it, so it's definitely on my list.
Man, it's so good. And what's funny is his dry humor is baked into it throughout. Yeah. But you know, when you talk to his staff and his crew, like every one of them, they make their jokes, but at the end of the day, they're like, he's one of the best people I've ever worked for. And like, I think it was their, I don't know if it's his personal trainer who had kind of had like an interest in photography, started taking photos and stuff while he's out with him. And he tears up because he's like, it's the best job I've ever had. Like I couldn't have a job better than this. And I don't want to tour with anyone else. Like
that reflection's so important, man.
But that's not a reflection necessarily just on Tom. I mean, primarily it would be because, you know, he ultimately is in charge of assembling that camp.
Right.
But the camp morale, right? Like the group morale is important. And it can't be the beatings will continue until morale improves. You know, it has to be, they feel like they're a family. And when you have that kind of a unit, you got to be willing to take the fights with it too. Because like, you know, there's some mean moments
I've
had.
It's another small town thing with me. It's like, I feel that bond and I feel like I want to take all my boys with me when we do make it, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, and that's the premise that you would want people to see you succeeding under. Yep. Not I just got a bunch of hired guns that are all good at what they do. And you're only a fan of me because we knew how to target you in marketing and this, that, and the other thing. Like this is what connection you have with your fans then. Right. You're going to write some stuff and they're going to have a connection with you, but they're not going to know why.
Right. And that's kind of how I substitute, like, you know, having to be like, okay, this is my entire life. I'm going to pour it out for you on social media. Like, you know, I'm going to be on here daily. I'm going to show you my whole life and give you my whole story every day. I kind of substitute it with like, it'll come when it comes. Like, and when I talk about like my music journey and everything and, you know, being comfortable and like maybe sometimes being like, fuck it, I'll just watch sports today. Like, you know, I know that things can happen in the future for me that will spark future songs that will never go away.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes when I'm discouraged and I'm like, there's nothing to write about, it's coming through sports, right? Because sports are so like, I just love everything about them, and I'm glad that, you know, I was raised to love them because they make for some good music.
Did you play sports in high school?
Played basketball. Yeah.
Fucking jock.
No, just look at me, dude. Oh my God.
I was friends with everybody in my high school. As I speak about that, I have a class reunion coming up, and
45 years.
Yeah, 45. And so, fuck you, Carlos. I can see him laughing. I can't even see him, and I know he's laughing.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry.
You know what? Fuck both of you. Wrap this up. We're done. That's the episode. I
love it.
I got along with everybody. I was friends with the people that were like, you know, not as well to do. Maybe like they were there. I thought I was in poverty. Like I had friends that were like, I mean, mine was with the single mom. So like I was on the government assisted applied, like 40-cent lunches. Like that was where I was at growing up. So I had that perspective, but then like also I had friends that were jocks. I had friends that were in theater. I had friends that were total nerds that got me into Dungeons and Dragons. And like, you know, I've
like
had
Nate listening to all that music. That's how you were as an elementary schooler.
Right. Exactly. So I just look at it like it'll be cool. I enjoyed having friends like all over in that regard.
I admire that because I was in the sports group and I liked sports and I kind of was closed-minded to other people.
I just cared if you were a person that I liked to talk to. And like, you know, you're already dealing with so much neurotic bullshit as a teenager in high school anyway. Like nobody gets out of that fucking unscathed. But if you can figure out a way to understand that, like, that's got to continue moving forward. Like I love the different friends that I've made because they've all led to other friends.
Yeah. Right. And as you get older, you realize that number one, people can't read the room and they're trying to connect with people that maybe they don't relate to and they just lose it. And there also is no empathy anymore to where people just have.
There is. So there certainly is. Right.
I've just become so like
jaded,
cynical about like people with empathy. Like every time I witness something negative happen where someone had no empathy, I'm like, oh, see, there's nothing. But there is.
That's the world. Yeah. Right. But like you said, like, you know, some people are like starving and I really like sports. You're like, how do I say that these two things are congruent? But the reality is like you're also not in control of every aspect of life. So it's not like you're God. It's not like you're the person who's dictating that different people have to have these different experiences. That just happens to be the world that we live in. And So, I mean, that makes it that much more important to be transparent and try to be leaving shit better than you found it. Like you're just in the same way we kind of self-apply that and say like, oh, you know, I want to be better today than I am tomorrow. I don't know that I necessarily exercise like a 0.1% increment better at Johnny than
that's that James Franklin go 1-0, baby. 1-0 every day. That's all you got to do.
But like, if you accept that your role in this is to be better yourself and learn and be observant and also empathetic, like I just try to have nothing but empathy because I'm like, especially with artists, I don't identify with anybody more than I do with artists and somehow also entrepreneurs and also these people that are in different industries. And it's because, you know, I think if I do a video for KCF Technologies and we're in some factory or some industry, lumber, logging, and I meet this guy, Ronnie, he's like been doing this job for like 40 years and has all of his fingers and is grateful for it. Like I identify with him because I think of my dad as a blue collar worker. And you know, if I meet a lot of like really strong independent women. I don't know. I don't delve in deep enough to know if they're married or divorced or they're single moms or whatever. But like my mom is a strong independent woman. And so I identify with them too. And I have respect for all these people because I'm like, I don't know what their story is, but if I can think of anything, it possibly wrapping into the way my story has turned out or the people that I've known as a part of my story, I'm like, I know I see you. Like I know who you are. Not intimately and not nuanced or whatever, but I can see you. And so if I can see you, I can be more empathetic toward you.
Yeah, even to the guy in my DMs who I forwarded this to you, sent me a message saying he was going to recreate our video. Remember this?
Yeah,
Come back, Aaron.
And then I tripped because I was like, that's a first for me. Like, what the fuck?
I'm like, okay, empathy. Pretty pissed off right now at the situation. It's the last thing I want to see is somebody recreate my video. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck this. It's kind of funny.
It is funny. And
New York Aaron is what he calls it. But he makes it before Aaron's fully committed with the Jets. So it's like, here's my plea for Aaron Rodgers to become a Jet.
Right.
And he puts it out. It does pretty well. I shared it on my story. He was like, bro, I'll pay you whatever you want for you to share this. I was like, dude, I appreciate the hustle, but I don't need anything for this. This is genuinely good, and it benefits us too because it's like someone was inspired enough to make a parody video of us. That's what I did with Scoop State of Mind. And like he puts it out, and his message to me after Aaron signs with the Jets, they both worked. When we put it out, he came back. when he put New York Aaron out, he went to the Jets. So
my proposal here, this is my artist to artist proposal to you is we have Spitfire, our singles coming out. Yeah. And we did some of the Bev music was produced by this EDM producer. So I was like, hey, make an EDM remix of this. I want to do like an EDM version of this. It's not something, it's going to be 100% in his realm to control. However, we'll make notes and stuff like it, have some back and forth. Wild. But then I'm like, you know what? It'd be sick if I had like somebody rap on the bridge on this on one song, and now it's that version, the whatever remix. What do I care if the song comes out in 15 different renditions of the same song with a lot of variations to it? Because I'm not the arbiter of whether one's going to be more successful than the other. It being out there is what determines that. Yep. So my proposal to you is, now that you've got football season coming up, would be to link up with this guy.
Let's go.
And now you've got the two of you. Regardless, I don't know how much success he had with his version of it, but yours was on ESPN, so there was some metric success there.
I had a lot of fun. I made a record called Mainstream Music way back in 2014, and it was over an EDM beat. And I don't know if I ever had more fun making a record, man. It was a lot of fun. It's a good time to rap over EDM.
But the fact that this dude does a parody of the track that you did, that I shot a music video for.
Yep. And he made it. He used us as a template. Like they had the picnic scene. They had the cutout. He's on.
You sent me the link. I watched the video.
Yeah, he was on the subway. Like he implemented. It was very clever, but man, good production value.
And so he's gonna have a season this year. Yeah. So maybe there's a Good Luck Aaron song that comes out. I know. Listen.
I'm still a Packers fan. Man.
That's fine.
That's all I gotta say.
But you're also an Aaron Rodgers fan.
Yeah, I don't hate him.
So you have the opportunity to be both the Packers fan and the Aaron Rodgers fan, knowing that he's going somewhere else. So you take that first verse because he did the first version, and you tee up this guy to come back and help him write his verse if it's a little weak or whatever.
Just asking for toxicity in my DMs, pal. It's gonna be nothing.
You remember when we said
enough already?
There is no such thing as bad publicity,
that's so true.
Especially because if that pops off. People now have a reason to check up the back catalog of these Aaron Rodgers songs. They're like, why are all these Aaron Rodgers songs coming out? and you go back and you're like, oh, well, here's the first one. And it timestamps it to basically to when, you'll see when it was uploaded and released on YouTube. But, for people to knowing contextually in time where that took place.
Right.
Then you have the version where there.
I'm so glad we did that because I'm so publicly a Penn State fan, right? Everybody knows that about me. I kind of hid my Packers fandom. People knew, if you really knew me, you knew I was a big Aaron Rodgers stan. But it's cool because we put Comeback Aaron out. That takes it to another level. Now Sean Clifford gets drafted to the Green Bay Packers.
Right.
So if
so
you
literally
see,
get to be a Penn State fan.
If you see, okay, Sean Clifford's going to take Aaron Rodgers' locker. Like it's Clifford in, Rodgers out.
Listen,
who am I going to online to see their reaction of that? Me.
I'm my own litmus test. Right. No. So now my position to you is that's your lyrical content for that third version because you get to be the Penn State fan. Yep. Obviously love Sean Clifford. Oh yeah. Obviously love Aaron Rodgers. There's all this going on. You could literally
have collided.
No, it doesn't have to necessarily be a diss, but it could be like a punchline about like I got Clifford anyway.
That's
like
right. I'm getting the jersey, man. I'm telling you, I'll be wearing a Sean Clifford jersey, Packers jersey next time you see me.
Dude, I really think this third version should happen. I know it's like a tall ask.
It's wild too because he's wearing 8, and that's what Rodgers picked with the Jets, a new number.
So tell me, there's not enough for a verse in there that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah, and
more than a verse, probably.
That's hilarious. And you're in the camp of people that you could see if Sean, if he was coming into town sometime, would be down and pop in and do a quick spot in his music video. And, I don't know how we get a hold of Aaron Rodgers, but we'll figure that out next, I guess.
Well, funny story, and I'll kind of close with it. Pat McAfee blocked me on Twitter because actually the whole, I was talking.
You seem proud of it is all I want to say.
I'm not because I love his content. I love his show and I watch it every day. And
well, you don't get to watch it anymore. So.
See, I'm glad he didn't block me.
That's your old joke right there.
Yeah. It's like, so I'm talking about like these marketing schemes and how I dream them up. My scheme for the Comeback Aaron one, I changed my Twitter name to Aaron Rodgers, but I flipped the G and the D. So I was like Aaron Rodgers or something.
Yeah.
Just enough. And I changed it to his profile picture. And I was verified at that point. So I'm like, okay, I have a really good chance to do this for 24 hours. I'm going to take our link and I'm going to tweet it out to everybody and caption it, respect my decision. So everyone's going to be like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers is making a decision. And you know how it is. If you're scrolling on Twitter, you see someone's profile picture.
I don't know how it is. I fucking hate Twitter, but I know how it works. So I can.
You were just talking about, you see my little picture in the circle that you shot.
That's Instagram.
When you're on stories. Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, of course you're going to do the homework and see, oh, this guy's a fraud. But like most people don't. They're scrolling by and they're like, oh my God, click the link, went to our video. So Pat McAfee clicked this link. It got like a bunch of favorites. People were like, oh my God, he's in your mentions. He clicked on the link. He saw the video. He blocked me. This was only a stunt for 24 hours.
Because you're a trash person that makes shitty jokes and about things that are very important.
My verification here. Who cares? I lost it anyway because I don't pay $8 a month. But like, dude, I was like, I'm always thinking of like, it's not that the music isn't good enough, but what can you do to like, really like a publicity grab, and that one got me blocked by Pat McAfee. So
you got to give that apology. You drop that instead of a diss track. You got to drop that apology track and be like, please unblock me.
Yeah. And I was like, maybe that was my only shot for Aaron to ever see Comeback Aaron is through Pat, and I blew it.
No, I don't think so. I think listen, if you're lucky, life is long, and that story has many pivot points. So is there a scenario where I think you could reach him? I say again, also third time's the charm. You find this dude that did the New York Aaron track. Yeah. You're going to do a third one, and it doesn't have to be the same feel, obviously. It doesn't even have to be a parody, and it might be better if you can explore a new tone with it. But knowing that there's this history of where it all evolved from, I think that's that story and narrative building that people like, because it gives them a story that they have to learn about.
Yeah, and who's to say? Nobody could ever prove that our song wasn't the reason he came back. Could have been.
Right. Maybe we do some sort of a celebrity... Do like a celebrity deathmatch thing, and we have Sean and Aaron go against each other or something. I don't know.
It's been funny because Aaron's like said a couple times now he's made videos for Sean. He's been like, "Hope you enjoy my locker." He sent him a jersey. Like,
oh yeah.
Sean's like starstruck. He's like, "I grew up watching this guy. He's an idol for me." And
how do you not have anything but like love and happiness for seeing somebody at that part of the
staring into his locker?
Did you see his Rose Bowl post about him as a kid in front of the Rose Bowl?
God, dude.
And then the ladder, it's like, you can't fucking write it better than that.
Yeah.
And I was so happy for him because
so cool.
He got a lot of flack for being a quarterback that was in a very interesting period of Penn State history. And it seems like every quarterback gets that.
Yeah, it's wild how I talked to Aeneas about how everybody came out into this NFL draft and said, Clifford's not a draftable grade. He'll coach. can't play, not good enough. 5th round draft pick.
Yeah.
Way exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting back thinking, oh, that was fake. That whole narrative that the media said, no draftable grade, you know.
It's just a bunch of people with
maybe he'll get
opinions
signed
waiting
as a
shit
free
down,
agent.
and
That
they had
was
the
never
distribution
true.
to say shit. They had
NFL scouts never thought that because
So-
they drafted him in the 5th round.
quick pivot. You know who Rick Saratella is?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so
Reading Eagle, right?
he wants me to produce
Yeah.
a YouTube channel for him.
Oh.
And so he sent me his top 50 picks, draft
Yeah.
picks or whatever. And like, I think it was like, or top 100 and whatever. And like,
Yeah.
it was like quarterbacks, draft
Well,
picks.
he's a
and then,
legend on the Penn State beat. Yeah.
yeah. So, I don't know if we're still trying to work on this or not, because
Yeah.
it's really difficult with us all being remote to try to pull this together. I'm sure they will try to do something, but they basically want to pull me in as a creative director for it.
Sweet.
And so, yeah, like Sean, like not very high up on that list. And, you know, even when Aeneas was on the podcast, he was like, you know, he's going to make a run for it. Like he was like, he deserves to make a run for it. Like he's got the accolades.
One
Like,
injury away from being an NFL starting quarterback. That's all I got to say.
yeah. And you watched it happen at
For
Iowa.
my favorite team.
Well, I mean, it's going to be exciting to see where his journey goes next. And then Trace is now in a good spot
New
too.
England. Back
Yeah,
with
man.
Bill O'Brien.
And so, listen, there's no
With
mistake.
Mike Gesicki too, man.
Yeah, that's also
Good little
hilarious.
offense, yeah.
You love seeing them after when you follow them in college
Yeah.
in the
It's my
NFL
favorite
space.
thing. And Trace is born one day before me, and it's so cool because, like, man, I'm just so grateful for everything that's happened, and that he has little kids running around at his football camps yelling. through
Yeah,
him.
I've seen all the NIL
And
stuff.
I
that,
think like the coolest thing was when he did an interview with Anna Camden on her podcast, and he said about how they played the song in a team meeting room for the Ravens, and John Harbaugh, the head coach there, played it. And Trace is a very humble guy, so he's sitting there like, "Oh my God, when is this gonna be over?"
calls you
I
up like you fucking dickhead.
I cannot fathom like being a little kid and thinking, "Wait, the NFL Ravens are gonna hear your song, and they're gonna hear it for 3 minutes." And it's going to be Lamar Jackson and Marcus Spears and all these legends with the Ravens that are going to hear your music at all when they never would have before organically. Like it just,
Listen.
that's like dreaming as a kid, man.
You have to be able to look back at yourself as a kid and remember what your aspirations and what your aimlessness was. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do after high school.
Same.
I only went to college because my mom started working for the university and I got a tuition
Totally
discount.
get that. Yep.
So like I took routes that were comfortable for me or that interested me. Like I didn't want to go to college. My mom was like, you should go. Would you go if I could get you this tuition discount? You won't have to pay anything.
Right.
And I lived on my own already. So my tuition assistance was based off of my income
Might
as
well
a
go. Yeah.
dishwasher, server, host at different restaurants, whatever.
Good deal.
And so I look at it like I didn't maybe necessarily have the dream or the ambition or the clarity to know what it is I wanted to do. But what I did have was things that I really liked and really enjoyed.
Me too.
I remember discovering new artists and new bands through anime music videos whenever I was in high school.
Yeah.
And now I've seen my band have anime music videos be made
It's
for
a
our stuff.
special feeling.
It,
Yeah.
well, what's cool about it is if I could go back and tell, you know, neurotic, anxious, nervous, insecure, 16, 15-year-old Johnny,
gonna
like,
work out.
hey, man, it's not even that it's going to work out because there's a lot of shit that doesn't work out along
Right.
the way. It's that just tell them what you're doing and what you've done.
Yeah.
That version of me would shit a kitten.
there's
He'd be like,
no chance.
I did
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Right.
And like, I'd never played Warped Tour I'd never seen been to a Warped Tour. Or I didn't really know about it outside of a Blink-182 song reference until I stepped on stage for the first time.
Right.
And I was like, this is pretty cool. I like that one of my little like asterisks next to my name is, you know, the first time he was at Warped Tour was when he played it. I'm sure
Part
that's
of history,
I'm sure
yeah.
that's a pretty small group of people that are in that position. Not small really, but like
Yeah.
of all the musicians that have ever lived, it's a small percentage. So yeah, man, you gotta, it is good to be, you know, when you're saying earlier about how you look through and you're like, man, a lot of things are going really well right
Yeah,
now.
Reflection. Yeah.
Before you have that moment where you're like, when's the other shoe drop? When do I get fucked? When's that coming?
Yeah.
There's this thing that can happen when you're being grateful too. And so if you can practice the gratitude and be able to take these experiences and the accolades and accomplishments you've had now and say, hey, I'm going to go back and in my brain, I'm just going to talk to 15-year-old me.
Yeah.
Fuck, I want time travel because
Yeah.
I would love to go back. I don't know. Wouldn't change anything about my timeline.
Yeah.
Right. But you have to have faith. This is proof that you have to have faith. Your things are going to work out regardless. Right. And like I said, obviously a lot of things don't, but man, I wish I could go back and tell 15-year-old me who was really scared and didn't know what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe you feel like you're a little overweight or maybe you're like, oh, I'm just not funny. Like,
Yeah.
You're going to try so many things. Let me tell you how many countries you've been to in the world. Like, think about it like stats, like player stats for a football player.
Right. And you learn just because you think something. Like, that was something I struggled with when I was young. Just because you think something doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, I've learned to realize that nobody else can hear my inner dialogue. And sometimes I was like,
only you are thinking about you as much as you're thinking about you.
Now there's these people out here who are going to expect me to do this. I'm like, wait, I didn't even say this out loud yet.
Yeah.
I just thought it, and I'm already holding myself to do it. I'm like, I can just totally erase that thought. It never happened. And like, I've learned to do that now where I'm like, there's no such thing as that. I never said that. So shut up. Like the next thing, like,
yeah, I do something very similar to that when I'm trying to go to sleep at night. I'm
I
like,
don't even write it down anymore. I'm like, if I write it down, it's going to piss me off that I didn't do it. So
right.
I just, none of the next one.
Matty, I got to be honest with you. I know we got to wrap up, but we definitely got to have you back on again whenever these tracks come out over the fall. And
this is one of the coolest. I mean, this is the longest interview I've ever done. And I think it's important for everyone to sit at this desk because you get to reflect on things that you've done in the past. You get to talk about how you feel currently. And you also get to, share experiences with someone like yourself who, for me, just in my career in general, even though we've only shared maybe a few small projects together, I feel like you've become a really good friend and made a really big impact on me. And I think that you were meant to do exactly what you're doing right now. And that's get people to open up. And, you're not a therapist, but this podcast is almost like podcast therapy. It really is. And I feel a lot better leaving than I did coming in. So.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that, man. Cause like, this is all born of like, the innate need I have to like not disappear into the ether the day I die. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Like, for me, that was what made the show come out in the first place. Like the manifestation of it was, I was like, man, I know a lot of people in a lot of different really weird fucking industries that I think would be friends. You ever had that like nightmare that you're in the same room as all your ex-girlfriends? Okay, I've never had that, but I've heard it's a thing. But like, I've had the thought exercise of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So as well, another thought exercise is like, man, it'd be really cool if I could get you and like this person that I know that really helped me in my journey. I feel like he would have some things to like do. Yeah. And so collab or die, certainly. But the real thing is I enjoyed everybody I've ever met that I've gotten to be able to have certain conversations and experiences with. Right. And I want people to, this discourse, this dialogue, we would have had this otherwise. Exactly. If we had 3 hours set aside where we were going to sit down and talk.
That's the best podcast episode there is when it doesn't feel like one.
Right. And some of them, like, I'm not going to name who, some of them have been like it's a little difficult to pull the information out of them.
People are used to getting interviewed. They're not used to sitting here and talking for 3 hours like this. So.
Right. And I'm not trying to conduct an interview. I'm trying to get out of people the way that their shared experience integrates into something that I've experienced. And if people know me, most of the people kind of know some of my story or whatever. But what you don't know about somebody is the way they're going to express something comes from a place of where they know it. Yeah. And so there's a great deal I am very quick to tell you I don't know anything about, but I am very interested in a wide range, like a myriad number of things that have nothing to do with photography or videography or music or entertainment or.
And I'll tell you what this makes me want to do. A lot of things, but I think the main thing it makes me want to do, I know we talk a lot about music and sports. What this makes me want to do is
start a podcast.
You did that. Yeah. Sit down with my parents and just record.
So I've actually gotten that.
Get something like, I feel like that's if you have a good relationship with your parents, you should do that. And this conversation makes me wonder how authentic this was, where I don't feel like I'm being interviewed. I just feel like I'm having a conversation with my brother. Like if we sat down with our parents and we had a conversation and it felt off the record, but it was something you were going to cherish forever. I feel like that would be the ultimate, like, satisfying thing later on in life.
So I did the podcast with Nick's dad, Wade, right before he passed away. And then, obviously like Nick was up here, he was operating the live switcher. I didn't have you yet, Carlos. And, Chris, he was, I think he was my third episode. Or no, Aeneas was my third episode. I think he was like my fourth or fifth. But anyway, Chris actually wants me to sit down and he wants to have some conversations with his family where not necessarily where he interviews them, but where he gets to kind of talk about the history. And there is something to or I'm trying to get my grandfather in here. The next time he comes back through the area, I'm like, whatever I got to do, I'm like, please just come down. Cause I have questions.
This is the environment for it.
And
it's no pressure here.
It is that, but also like, it's also created space. Yep. Like you have to create space to create, to write songs, to make raps, to anything. Yeah. So be able to create some space where we can sit down and kind of talk about the history and what really happened here and how did you feel? And like, that's something that I don't know if I'm ever going to have kids, but if I do, then I can pass that on to them. And at the very least, my family has, I have other people in my family that have kids. So if you want to know something about your great grandfather who's not around anymore, listen to him talk, listen to the words of wisdom that come out of him.
And some of the things I did at Penn State, like even for an Italian class, we had to do a project where we interviewed an Italian relative, and I interviewed my aunt who then passed on. And it turns out that we go to the funeral and I'm able to give her daughter, my cousin, this interview that was not released on YouTube. It was just for a project and just for a grade.
Right.
And she's in tears. And she's like, I cannot believe that you're able to give me this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Nick.
Stuff like that is, and that this is the forum for that. And I feel like you could do like Collab or Die is just, it's this no pressure environment where you're inclined to talk because you have a microphone in front of your face, but you're not distracted by, okay, this is just an interview. Like, I got to be guarded.
Yeah, and it can be both. You know, like certainly there's some people that I don't have the time or maybe I'm not as close to that it's difficult to have that conversation with.
It depends where they're at. Yeah.
And so, like the only hurdle I really have is finding people that want to come on or that I know well enough that that have enough going on in their world that I want to have them on, because I don't want to have anybody on that I don't really have an interest in having on. I think,
and that's like the YouTube portion of it. But I mean, like this, like you said, with your grandfather, this could even be like amazing personally to do and have conversations with people that, you know, you just want to get them on the record. That'd be super cool.
Yeah. So I can blackmail you around Christmas. Well, I really appreciate you saying all the nice things, man. This is like a labor of love. It's not really something that I expect anything of other than to show up genuinely and have good conversations with the people that I've met in my life that I think are doing interesting things or maybe parallel things. And the fact that you appreciate it as much as I feel like I've just got very high praise, and I'm in a phase of my life where I'm trying to be better about being able to accept compliments and, you know, positive commentary, but I'm also in a place where I can appreciate it now. So like, I really do appreciate you saying that. And like I said, I'm really glad that you know, hit me up. We're going to talk shop about doing a music video together, but I just appreciate you being like, and I can do the podcast too. I was like, oh, the hell yeah, you can. And that's a part of it. It's all of that exploratory and it's captured. So you've got it to listen to later. So Matty Fresh, man, thank you so much. You want to tell people where they can find all your stuff?
Absolutely. Go to Spotify, Matty Fresh on there, Apple Music, wherever you get your music. We also have a show called Spring Ball Boulevard that will be coming back out about the XFL from February to May. And new things coming up soon. Matty Fresh TV on Twitter. Do not have Threads yet. I will try to get on.
I fucking refuse. Threads will never get me. They'll never get me over my dead body. I'll be on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Matty, man. Thanks for coming out, and hopefully you get to enjoy a little bit of Arts Fest before you roll out of here.
I appreciate it. I'm always interested in what State College has to offer. Let's put it that way.
I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, man.
We're always collaborating at all times with the universe.
That is a wrap on another episode of the Collab or Die podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making this episode for you. And now it's time for our favorite part of the show, the part where I beg you to please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't be shy. Give us a shout out on social media at Collab or Die Podcast on all the cool platforms to share your thoughts, your feedback, and your love. Until next time, Collab or Die, baby.